Immortal Cultivation begins with time management. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 251 Escaped, but not completely. When Zhu Yinglian was dragged out of the door, she found that all the maids outside the door had disappeared, as if they had been sent away in advance. Don't make trouble. She finally reacted and tried to break free from her brother's hand. Even the master is on the guest list this time. Don't act on impulse. I'm not acting on impulse. Qiu Changtian said with a smile. Don't you think that, at least in this marriage, the family should give you room for choice? I did say that. Zhu Yinglian frowned and taught him coldly, but this is not a reason for you to act willfully at this time. Willful? I don't think so. Qiu Changtian smiled and said, tell me the truth, if you follow that family's arrangements this time. For you, is it an irreparable regret for your whole life? So what? Zhu Yinglian said angrily, the reason why I'm willing to suffer this grievance is because, her next words were cut off, because Qiu Changtian had already reached out and gently wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes. She didn't even know and she started crying. Junior sister Zhu. Qiu Changtian put away his smile and said seriously, as long as you are willing to call me senior brother, I will not let you suffer these grievances again. You. Zhu Yinglian looked flustered and subconsciously wanted to step back, but Qiu Changtian grabbed her waist. Instantly guessing that her senior brother was going to take her away by force, Zhu Yinglian hurriedly wanted to scream, but was sealed by her senior brother again. The jade dragon sword flew out of his sleeve, turning into a golden sword light, instantly wrapping the two of them in it and soaring into the sky. It was not until above the clouds that Qiu Changtian let go of the junior sister who was having difficulty breathing, and laughed. Who do you think I am? I am Qiu Changtian, the chief of Kunlin. If I can't even stop my junior sister from being wronged, how can I be a shitty senior brother? You bastard. Zhu Yinglian was furious and punched him in the chest a few times as if to vent his anger, but soon he turned around and hugged his senior brother. It was not because she was moved by him, but because the jade dragon sword flew too high and was a little dangerous. She thought silently in her heart, closed her eyes, and put her face on her senior brother's chest. After about a quarter of an hour, the Zhu clan members who suddenly found that the bride and groom were missing immediately became like ants on a hot pot, and they were in a mess. What's going on? The Zhu clan leader and the elders also came together. Looking at the empty boudoir and the maids who were lying on the ground and trembling, they were so angry that they slammed their crutches on the ground repeatedly and asked angrily, how could this happen? Could it be that Eileen and the son-in-law had a quarrel and the two of them left in anger? Don't talk about this for now. An elder said anxiously, the ritual instruments in the clan land have been prepared, and the clan members have gathered. What should we do next? What should we do? What should we do? The Zhu clan leader gritted his teeth and suddenly saw Zhu Changqing pushing the crowd of elders and walked out. Master King Yang, what do you think we should do? The elders started to chatter. Junior brother Qiu has already told me about this in advance. Master King Yang, Zhu Changqing said calmly. The elders looked at each other. Junior brother Qiu said. Master King Yang continued, Eileen is not displeased with this marriage, but she doesn't want the family to forcefully interfere in the marriage. The elders were confused. So you are willing to do it, but you don't want to do it when the family helps you. What's the reason? So junior brother Qiu should ask her opinion first. Master King Yang smiled, if Eileen doesn't plan to come according to the family's arrangement, he will take Eileen away directly. As a cunning cultivator, you should seek to achieve a state of mind that is unobstructed. How can you be forced to succumb to these red tape for a little fame? It's a small matter if your thoughts are not clear, but it's a big matter if it affects your subsequent cultivation. The elders fell silent, and the head of the Zhu family thought for a moment, but he was overjoyed. It is true that the wedding could not be held because both the bride and groom disappeared. However, this just illustrates another point, that is, Qiu Changtian, who was also arranged to marry, had no dissatisfaction with this marriage. On the contrary, he attached great importance to Zhu Yinglian's feelings, so much so that he took her away early for her little grievance. Here, the Zhu clan leader has defined the behavior of the two as leaving early rather than escaping from marriage. It is shameful that the wedding cannot be held, but if it can be exchanged for a close son-in-law of the Zhu family, who is also a genius with a clear mind, it is indeed a loss of face but a rich reward. How can he not be satisfied? Then what about the wedding? An elder of the clan did not expect a key point and asked with a frown. No problem. True Man King Yang said with a smile, let's gather the clan members to the inner house first, and don't let them go out. Pretend that junior brother Kia was inside to participate in the ancestor worship. I'll go out to entertain the guests. When the banquet is over, we'll say that the wedding has been completed. Then if someone asks, why don't you see the bride and groom, another elder asked worriedly. I'll take care of it. True Man King Yang said. So everyone had no objection. On the other side, Qiu Changtai had brought Zhu Yingyan back to Kunlun and landed at the door of her cave. At this time, the junior brothers and sisters were all attending the wedding banquet in the clan land of the Zhu family in Tianan, so Jinline was empty. Only countless white-feathered cranes stopped here, each leisurely combing their feathers. Let me go. As soon as she landed, Zhu Yingyan let go of her senior brother's hand and shyly poked him with her elbow. Qiu Changtai loosened her waist, thinking that junior sister's waist was really thin and soft. No, should I call her a virtuous wife? He frowned slightly and said in distress. Junior sister, since you have escaped this marriage, does it mean that we have not yet become Taoist couples? Then is it not legitimate for me to call myself husband? When Zhu Yingyan heard the word husband, she was a little confused at first, and then felt uncomfortable, and said with a wry smile, forget it. I'm used to calling you senior brother. Is that so? Qiu Changtai nodded. As for whether we are Taoist couples, does it matter? Zhu Yingyan blinked and suddenly smiled. Everyone knows that my senior brother and I have become Taoist couples. Even the clan will definitely not publicize this matter. They will definitely say that the wedding has been held in full. What difference does it make whether I call you husband or senior brother in the future? As for the so-called legitimate, there is no need for a ceremony to prove it. Her smile was bright and beautiful, less cold and detached than usual, but more overflowing with warmth and happiness, which almost made Qiu Changtai lose his mind. But he quickly came back to his senses and teased her deliberately. So junior sister is also obsessed with public opinion. I thought junior sister, a phoenix fairy like her, would already have her heart above all else and not care about what outsiders think of her. Public opinion kills people, who wouldn't be afraid? Zhu Yingyan was not angry, but continued to smile. As for the title of Phoenix Fairy, although I like it, I don't care. Then what does junior sister care about? Qiu Changtai asked. The answer to him was a light kiss. Chapter 252. Ouch. Are you shy? East of Kunlun Mountains, Chit Market, Restaurant. Doising is quite elegant. Qiu Changtai said slowly. Sitting across from the table was the successor of the Taoist tradition left by Chonghe Taoist, the old Taoist priest who was rescued by Ling Yunpo and senior sister in the depths of Tianmu Mountain. Ahem. The old Taoist priest drank the wine in the cup and said with a smile, I didn't expect that there are still people willing to practice thunder magic in Kunlun Sept now. The practice of thunder magic has huge hidden dangers. Qiu Changtai said gently, if I didn't have a clear mind of Taoism, I wouldn't dare to easily dabble in it. Senior brother Qiu was right. The old Taoist priest nodded. The two chatted about some knowledge of thunder magic. What surprised Qiu Changtai was that although the old Taoist priest was at a low level, his theoretical foundation of thunder magic was unexpectedly solid. Having said that, apart from the Shengxiao thunder magic, Chonghe Taoist did not seem to leave behind more Taoist traditions. For decades, this old Taoist priest had nothing else to do except studying thunder magic, so it was natural that he had a solid foundation. I do have a question for fellow Taoists. Qiu Changtai asked humbly. Among the 10 thunders, Yushu, Shengxiao and Dadong are the lower 3 thunders. Xiandu, Beiji and Xi are the middle 3 thunders. Zaifu, Yushen and Texao are the upper 3 thunders. And the last one is Taji, the supreme divine thunder. According to the general principles of thunder magic, these 10 thunders can be divided into 4 levels: lower, middle, upper, and supreme. But in fact, in my opinion, the lower 3 thunders and the middle and upper thunders have their own characteristics, and there is no difference between them. Then why are the lower 3 thunders and the middle 3 thunders defined like this? Brother Qiu, this question is really thoughtful. The old Taoist said with a smile, these lower 3 thunders, the middle 3 thunders, do not refer to the power of thunder magic, but to the scarcity. Scarcity? Qiu Changtai asked in surprise. That's right. Scarcity makes things valuable. The fewer there are, the more they're sought after. This has been the case since ancient times. The old Taoist stroked his beard and said, Yu Shu, Sheng Xiao, and Dadong are called the three lower thunders because in ancient times, these three types of thunder methods were the most widely spread. Even some casual cultivators who did not have a tradition of thunder methods could learn a thing or two. As for why these three types of thunder methods are used, we have to start with the three disasters in ancient times. Three disasters? Qiu Chang's time seemed to be thinking about it. Does it mean the sky collapsed, and demons wreaked havoc? It was these three disasters. The old Taoist tapped the table lightly. The sky collapsed, and demons from outer space frequently invaded, traveling between the two realms like passing through an open door. Later, it was Niwei who refined the sky repairing stone that completely resolved this catastrophe. Before repairing the sky, how did human cultivators fight against the demons? It was the Dadong thunder that specialized in attacking the demons. Similarly, when the ground in Jiuzhou cracked, ghosts appeared under the yellow springs. Before Shannon cast the Shenanting and suppressed the ground veins in Jiuzhou, the human race relied on the jade pivot thunder to kill the ghosts. After repairing the sky and suppressing the Yiv, there was a long-term fight between humans and monsters. The Shengxiao thunder, which was extremely effective against monsters, immediately stood out, and almost all major sects had collections of scriptures. It was not until Xia refined the Qin and Tian swords and killed monsters like a dead tree and drove all the monsters to the Donghuang realm that the Shengxiao thunder lost its place and was gradually no longer passed down. So that's it. Qiu Chang's time suddenly realized, the practice of thunder magic is difficult and dangerous, and the threshold is too high. It must encounter disasters and catastrophes to be carried forward. Or someone as gifted as senior brother Qiu, who regards the threshold of practicing thunder magic as nothing, can also practice it. The old Taoist complimented, and now he and the Phoenix Fairy have become a Taoist couple, which is really enviable. Ahem. Qiu Chang's time said modestly, feeling helpless. Before, he took junior sisters Yu to escape from marriage, and the result was a great increase in favorability, and even a kiss. However, the bad thing was this kiss, which was not the result of junior sister's careful consideration, but she was finally freed from the cage for a long time and couldn't help herself. When the next day came, Zhu Yingyan suddenly cooled down from the passion, and followed by endless shame. She wanted to travel back to yesterday, catch the self who took the initiative to kiss senior brother, slap her left and right, and yelled, "How can you be so unrestrained?" He might even go deep into the fantasy and think that senior brother would think junior sister must be deeply infatuated with me, so she took the initiative to kiss. Oh, this junior sister is too innocent, just doing a little thing can easily get it done. Junior sister is not only behind in cultivation, but now even her charm has lost to me. Lost to me, lost. Therefore, when Qiu Chang's time went to the cave to find junior sister's Yu the next day, he found that junior sister had gone out to practice early. On the third day, I went to the entrance of my junior sister's cave to arrange music, but found that she had left again. On the fourth day, I went to wait in the early morning, and sure enough, I waited until my junior sister left the cave at the hour of yin. I saw Zhu Yingyan flying her sword all the way to the extreme west. This place is a large desolate place with no people. It is a good place for Kunlun monks to practice Taoism. She landed in a valley somewhere, first practiced the great bright fire for a while, and melted all the large rocks around. Then she rested for a while, and suddenly I don't know what I thought of, and I gritted my teeth and pulled out the Yujie sword, cutting randomly on a rock wall like venting. Qiu Chang's time followed behind, and was terrified. Could this junior sister's Yu be possessed by a demon again? Thinking of this, he rushed over to stop her, but as soon as Zhu Yingyan saw him, she turned around and ran away. Qiu Chang's time chased her for dozens of miles until she shouted in shame and anger, "Don't follow me," and then he suddenly understood. It's not the inner demon, but Shinos, brother Qiu. The old Taoist asked softly. Nothing. Qiu Chang's time came back from his thoughts and said with a smile, "I just remembered something. This junior sister refused to see me because she was shy. Forcing her to chase would only backfire. Let her calm down for a while. By the way." Qiu Chang's time took out an awl from the storage bag and put it on the table. Does Taoists recognize this thing? The old Taoist frowned and stared at the awl. He didn't reach out to take it, but just scanned it carefully with his eyes. Suddenly, he noticed the immortal seal engraved on one side of the vertebral body and said uncertainly, "Could it be the Thunder God Cone?" Thunder God Cone? Qiu Chang's time asked in surprise. The name seemed a bit ordinary. As everyone knows, in this world of cultivation, most of the orthodox Taoist magic tools and Taoist techniques are basically named in stacking buffs. For example, 9 heavens pure and subtle entry mantra. 9 heavens means coming from the fairy land, pure and subtle means focusing on refining turbidity into purity, and entry means that this method can help people attain enlightenment. The more prefixes there are, the higher the level, which means the higher the rank. However, there are exceptions, such as summonate and acquired spiritual treasures that are said to have origins in the fairyland, and the names are extremely simple, such as Kunlun Mirror, Kingping Sword, Fanchon Seal, etc. Could this Thunder God Comb be a similar thing? It is said that in ancient times, there was an ancient sect called Donghua sect, which mastered the secret method of practicing Take Sao Thunder among the 3 upper thunders. The old Taoist said cautiously, Take Sao is mysterious and is said to have the power to destroy the heavens and the earth. It is impossible for human cultivators to master it unless they are gifted. In the early stage, they must use the Thunder God Comb to release it and slowly learn to adapt. In this way, this Thunder God Comb is probably a special instrument used to learn Take Sao Thunder. Later, Donghua sect declined in the last generation of ancient times, and Take Sao Thunder and Thunder God Comb disappeared. If senior brother Kyo looks for it in the place where he found the Thunder God Comb, he may be able to find some traces of Take Sao Thunder. I see, thank you, fellow Taoist. Kyo changed eye and put away the Thunder God Comb and thought to himself. This Thunder God Comb was obtained from the Shouanmu secret realm of the Divine Fire Do last time. Could Take Sao Thunder be among them? It's a pity that only Jindan cultivators can go to the secret realm for trial, so I can only keep an eye on it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 253 Kaling's Entrustment. Southern Xinjiang, Yulong Mountain. For some reason, Wei Dongliu has recently discovered that Jianglian's attitude towards him has become more and more intimate. Is it because he drove away her senior sister for her? But Wei Dongliu knew in his heart that the reason why Jianglian wanted to perform in front of him was actually to let him get rid of her senior sister for her, not to drive her away. In short, the mind of this witch is really hard to guess. Wei Dongliu can only respond to her moves and brush up as much synchronization value as possible. Finally, the day of leaving the mountain came. Everyone stood in front of the square of the Donghuan temple. They saw that the peach-colored miasma in the distance was like a tide, fading rapidly to the south, revealing the layers of tropical forests below, as green as dark blue. Legend has it that this peach blossom miasma is a curse from the demons. Long Xiaoqi suddenly said, in the last days of ancient times, a large number of demons were driven to the Donghuan demon realm, and those who refused to leave were slaughtered. In this southern border, the number of demons slaughtered was in the millions. After the gate to the Donghuan realm was closed, peach blossom miasma also appeared. Those who entered would have their faces turn red within 3 days, and bleed from all 7 orifices within 5 days. If they did not leave, they would die within 7 days. So there is another saying that this peach blossom miasma is a curse and revenge left by the demons. What do you think? It doesn't matter what Gilai said nonchalantly. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not. Wen Yang said, if the demon race is really that powerful, wouldn't it be enough to just curse and kill all the humans? Jianglian sneered, how could they be like dogs that have lost their homes and be driven away in droves to the Eastern Empire realm? Long Xiaoqi was silent for a while, and asked Wei Dongliu. Wei didn't say anything. What do you think? I think only the demon race knows the truth. Wei Dongliu said lightly. Not necessarily. Long Xiaoqi was silent for a moment, and said, after more than 100,000 years, even the demon race today probably doesn't know the situation of the demon race back then. What's the point of knowing or not? Gilai said impatiently, oh. We can set off. In the distance, 5 colored flags were seen rising rapidly in the wind, and countless sword lights rose from the square of the Eastern Empire Palace, rushing towards the continuous mountains and rainforests in the distance. The 5-man team here would naturally not fall behind, and they quickly flew into the air on their swords and rushed down along the terrain of the Jade Dragon Snow Mountain. Suddenly, Wei Dongliu seemed to realize something and turned around. He saw the Kaling lying on the square floor tiles open his eyes, and his pupils like brass bells moved slightly and looked towards him. It was hard to tell what emotion it had. Wei Dongliu frowned slightly and turned back again. The area near the East Empire Temple has basically been explored. While flying on the sword, Wen Yang quickly said to everyone, there are currently 2 directions. In the north, the ruins are less dangerous, and there are more human ruins than demon ruins. The probability of us using the related adventure treasures together is also greater. However, that side is the main attack direction of Shushan, and there is a high probability of a conflict with the Shushan team, especially this time the 5 paths are united against Shushan, which is bound to increase the risk level of that area. In the south, the closer to the East Empire Realm Gate, the more dangerous the ruins are, and there are more demon ruins. If you go through a lot of hardships and finally get a martial arts method that only the demons can use, you can imagine how disgusting it is. But the problem is that you can avoid the battlefield with Shushan. Wait, Wenyang. Jiangling interrupted him. Didn't we decide a long time ago? Let's go to the north this time. Indeed. Wenyang said casually, I just remind you that if you want to change your plan, now is the last time. If we get to the north and find that the battlefield situation is too bad, and we want to turn back to the south temporarily, it will definitely be too late. What's there to hesitate about? Gilai said with a gloomy face, if someone wants to go back on their word at the time, ask me if the sword in my hand agrees first. Wait a minute. Wei Dongliu suddenly shouted. His voice was so loud that the other 4 people reflexively pulled the sword light and hovered in the air. What's wrong? Jiangling asked curiously. Colin is talking to me. Wei Dongliu frowned and said. The other 4. Their expressions were extremely complicated for a while. But if you look closely, Jiangling is suspicious, Wenyang is serious, Gilai is shocked, and Longxiaki has no expression. She has always been expressionless. Go to the south. In my mind, the powerful and low voice of Colin came. Why? Wei Dongliu frowned and asked. There is a mirror pool there. Colin said in a muffled voice, it can increase the cultivation of the Wafu by 70 years. This is what you need most. Wei Dongliu. What is the price? He asked again in a deep voice. Help me get something back from there. Colin said. Seeing Wei Dongliu staying where he was, the people around him frowned and opened their eyes wide. They couldn't help but exchange glances quickly. Wenyang's eyes were full of disbelief. Jiangling shook his head imperceptibly, approached Wei Dongliu, and made his position clear. Gilai rolled his eyes a few times, and then approached Wei Dongliu from the other side. He didn't believe that this mysterious fellow Daoist Wei was the kind of person who would like to attract attention. What's more, everyone had witnessed Colin speaking to him before. Longxiaki shrugged and looked at Wenyang. So Wenyang showed an expression of okay, but I need an explanation afterwards. After Wei Dongliu finished talking with Colin, he came back to his senses again and saw that the 4 of them were looking at him with sharp eyes and serious expressions. Even Longxiaki, who was always lazy and absent-minded, rarely looked serious at this time. Master Colin wants me to get something for him. Wei Dongliu said concisely, the reward is a secret realm that increases the cultivation of the Wafu by 70 years. 70 years. Gilai's eyes immediately widened, and Wenyang's eyes twitched. Only Jiangling and Longxiaki maintained their expressions. The former had been mentally prepared long ago. After all, there were too many suspicious points about the identity of this old thief Wei, so it was not surprising that he could take out anything. The latter, however, had a thoughtful look. What do you want to take, brother Wei, can you tell me? Wenyang asked with a cautious expression. Wei Dongliu shook his head, and suddenly turned his eyes again, looking at the Colin lying on the square. The Colin opened his mouth, and a stream of light flew over and went straight into his sleeves. So everyone immediately stopped thinking. They were not arrogant enough to dare to spy on the secrets of this Colin. But similarly, since it was indeed the order of this Colin, it is unlikely to be a lie. After all, his rank is here. If he really wants to ask for help, how many seniors in the Donghuangdu are willing to volunteer, even without any reward, just to win this person's favor? There is no need to bother to make up a lie to deceive them. In other words, the 70 years of Wafu cultivation is probably true. 70 years, thinking of this, everyone's hearts were hot. If there is such a big benefit, they dare to go through mountains of swords and seas of fire. On the top floor of the Donghuan Palace in the distance, Li leaned on the balcony railing, watching the interaction between Colin and Wei Dongliu and others below. After a while, she yawned lazily, then lowered her eyelids, and the corners of her mouth were slightly curved. I don't know what she was thinking. Chapter 254. The capital of all monsters, the city of all elephants. There were layers of impenetrable leaves above his head, and not a single ray of sunlight shone down. However, the temperature in the forest was not low, but warmed like spring, without any chill. Gilai led the way in the front, swinging his arm, and the blood-red flying sword slashed left and right, cutting through all the branches and leaves of the bushes that blocked the way cleanly. Since the miasma was almost diluted on the surface, it became thicker as it went higher, so everyone had to give up flying swords and move forward physically. Suddenly, a giant python descended from the tree and swallowed him whole from head to toe in an instant. The next second, the blood-red flying sword ripped open the giant python's belly, and Gilai appeared leisurely from behind that tree next to him, without any dirt on his body, and it was obvious that he had not been hit at all. Wei Dongliu saw clearly from behind. The moment the giant python fell, Gilai dodged with some kind of high-speed footwork. What the giant python swallowed was only Gilai's after-image and the blood-colored flying sword that remained in place, and then the flying sword dismembered the giant python from the inside and killed it. This Gilai seemed to have practiced some kind of bodybuilding secret technique. Wei Dongliu observed Gilai, while Wen Yang and Jianglin were also behind him, quietly observing Wei Dongliu. Fellow Daoist Jiang. Wen Yang pinched the Do formula in his sleeves, but he activated the spell of sound transmission, and asked Jianglin, where did this fellow Daoist Wei come from? What did fellow Daoist Wen see? Jianglin asked instead of answering. Wen Yang was silent for a moment. I can't see through it. He claims to be a cultivator of the water level. But from what I see, there are too many weird places. I would like to hear the details. Jianglin responded with a smile. First of all, where did a casual cultivator without a master get the 100 poison gold and silkworm gyu? Wen Yang said slowly. Maybe he was lucky and encountered some relics. Jianglin disagreed. Well, let's say he's lucky enough to have found an unhatched golden silkworm gyu in some ruins. Wen Yang stared at the trees in the distance. What about hatching? In order to make the golden silkworm gyu recognize its master, it must first be refined with essence and blood, and then fed with golden ganoderma and jade leaf flowers. Otherwise, when this vicious creature breaks out of the shell, it will be so hungry that it won't recognize any relatives and may even turn against its owner. How did he know the method of refining essence and blood, and also have the golden ganoderma and jade leaf flowers ready? Maybe there just happened to be golden ganoderma and jade leaf flowers in the ruins, and there was a jade slip that recorded the method of refining essence and blood. Jianglin guessed. Okay, then let's assume that there is everything in the ruins. Wen Yang said in a cold tone, the gold and silkworm gyu must recognize its master in the egg, and its eggs must be suppressed by a very poisonous sealing formation, otherwise it will hatch in just a few hours. If he is really a casual cultivator, how can he break the formation? Could it be that the formation just happened to malfunction? Then the gold and silkworm gyu would have come out long ago, right? Fellow Daoist Wei claims to be proficient in formations. Which Jing thought to herself that Judge Wen's analysis is so damn right. This guy is almost full of suspicious points, and every suspicious point does not seem like an ordinary waffle level cultivator. But he smiled and said, it is natural that he can break these formations, 10,000 souls devouring heart formation. Wen Yang said suddenly. What? Among the arrays that seal the 100 poisons gold and silkworm gyu, there is one called the 10,000 souls devouring heart array. Wen Yang said in a gloomy tone, if a cultivator does not enter the nascent soul realm, his soul will be scattered when he enters the array, and he will have no power to resist. Fellow Daoist Jiang, do you still want to guess that fellow Daoist Wei also has an innate spiritual treasure that can resist the attack of the nascent soul level array and can be driven by a transformation palace level cultivator? Jianglin was speechless. Of course, that was impossible. First of all, regardless of the scarcity of innate spiritual treasures, a spiritual treasure of that level would definitely have spiritual intelligence, so how could it be willing to be driven by a transformation palace level cultivator? Isn't it better to find an immortal? Secondly, even if the innate spiritual treasure is confused, it will recognize Wei Dongliu as its master. If an ordinary cultivator has such an innate spiritual treasure recognizing its master, wouldn't he immediately find a big guy to become his disciple and then take off directly? Why bother to create a sect in the mortal do and find 2 cats and dogs as disciples to fill the appearance? This is no longer simply outrageous. Even though Jiang Monu boasted of her wisdom and strategy, she could only be sure of one thing at this time. He established the Wanfei Tongshuan sect for another purpose. As for what he was planning, it was really hard to guess. Seeing that Jianglin had nothing to say, Wen Yang also understood. This Wei Dongliu was definitely not an ordinary waffle level cultivator, and even whether he was waffle level or not was a question mark. In front, Gilai casually manipulated the flying sword to skin and bone the black leopard, and turned around and asked, "Do you want materials?" No one responded, and no one had the need to refine weapons. So Gilai put the things away and asked everyone to continue moving forward. The place given by Colin was deep in the 10,000 mountains, more than 600 miles south of the Jade Dragon Snow Mountain. It was a sparsely populated place, and probably only the expedition team heading to the East Empire Realm Gate would pass through there. The various monsters encountered along the way were all ferocious and violent, and ordinary Waffle-level cultivators could not deal with them at all. Fortunately, the 5 of them were not ordinary cultivators, and even if Gilai took action alone, he would kill them directly. They did not rest either. After the marrow washing, they were full of energy. They traveled through mountains and rivers as if they were walking on flat ground. It took them about 7 or 8 days to reach the place Colin mentioned. Alado Mountain. Is this our destination? Jiangling asked curiously, looking at the steep mountain in front of him. It should be. Wei Dongliu explained to everyone, according to Lord Colin, this mountain is called Alado Mountain. Alado Mountain was once the core hinterland of the ancient demon clan. The so-called Alado is the dialect of the ancient southwestern human race, which means center. The demon clan calls it the city of all things and the capital of all demons. The capital of all demons. Wen Yang pondered for a moment and said, if so, why is it so unknown now that we have never heard of it? From ancient times to ancient times, from ancient times to modern times, how many secrets have disappeared in the long river of history? Wei Dongliu shook his head, not to mention that the 100,000 mountains in the southwest have changed hands several times, from Jirizhou to beast taming sect. Every time there is a change, countless classics are lost. It is normal that we have never heard of it. Legend has it that there is a special magnetic field in this Alado Mountain. Ordinary cultivators who enter this place are very likely to get lost and cannot distinguish between north, south, east and west. Even the wayfinding magic weapon will fail. As he spoke, Wei Dongliu took out a small golden sword from his sleeve. It was given to him by Colin before he left. It was only the length of a palm, shining with golden light. This is the Mendwan sword, which can lead us through the maze and reach the Jinnu Palace on the top of the mountain. Gilai heard this and immediately asked impatiently, the adventure that allows us to gain 70 years of Wafu cultivation is in the Jinnu Palace? Yes. Wei Dongliu nodded. Jiangling said nothing beside him. Everyone's eyes were burning. Even Long Xiaoqi, who was so introverted, showed desire in his eyes. Only Wei Lazi looked calm, without any eagerness, as if the 70 years of hard work was nothing to him. Little did you know that this expression without any flaws was your biggest flaw. Wei Dongliu didn't know that Witch Jing had gone around in circles and analyzed the expression on his face into hundreds of words. He just confirmed with Kumlan Mirror in his heart. Mirror, are you sure? Almost. Kumlan Mirror sighed, when I heard about Mirror Lake, I felt something. Now that we have reached the foot of the mountain, I can roughly confirm, there should be a fragment of my body in the Mirror Lake Palace, and it seems to be suppressed by something and has no intelligence at all. Chapter 255. Mirror Lake Palace, each with their own plans. The crowd was walking in the forest. No one had been passing through this mountain for a long time, and the original stone steps had decayed and weathered, covered by countless vines and weeds. I saw Wei Dongliu holding the Mendwan sword in his palm, and walking with the crowd in the direction pointed by the sword tip, sometimes climbing up, sometimes walking left and right, and sometimes even turning around and walking down. Doorway, are you sure? Long Xiaoqi suddenly said, if I remember correctly, it seems that we have gone back now. Long. Wei Dongliu said gently, the magnetic field here is disordered. You think you are walking in a straight line, but in fact you are going back and forth in circles. Instead of trusting your sense of direction, you might as well trust my sword in your palm. How about it? Well. Long Xiaoqi stopped talking, as if he had just asked casually. The crowd started climbing the mountain at noon, and finally arrived at the lake exit on the top of the mountain in the evening. I saw that there was actually a huge lake on the top of the mountain. From a distance, it looks like a clear green mirror, shining brightly. From a close look, the lake water is so clear that even the gravel at the bottom of the lake can be clearly seen. There were a lot of densely planted trees on the lake exit, lush and tall. However, there was no sign of any temple. Jiangling gathered up the bottom of his robe, squatted down by the lake to check the water surface, and said, there are fish in the lake, there should be no problem. There are deer, moonjacks and monkeys in the opposite forest. The ghost that Wen Yang sent out to detect also came back and told everyone. Everyone was speechless. The ecological environment around here is so rich, it doesn't look like there are any relics. Wei Dongliu glanced at the golden sword, and saw that the tip of the sword pointed directly at the center of the lake. We have to go to the lake, he said. Cut wood and build a boat? Jiangling asked. No, fly the sword. Wait, Liu said. Jiangling hesitated and looked, only to see that there was no miasma on the lake. He couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. The 5 people each pulled out their flying swords and flew straight. When they arrived at the center of the lake, they saw the golden sword suddenly spinning around. Everyone. Is it out of order? Gilai asked with a twitch in his eyes. No. Wei Dongliu turned his palm to the side. The golden sword that was still spinning immediately turned to the bottom as if it was moved by some invisible hand and stopped. At the bottom of the lake. When Yang looked down, there is nothing at the bottom of the lake. Everyone looked down and saw that although the lake was deep, the water was too clear. They could still see the sand, water plants and migrating fish at the bottom. Where was the shadow of the palace? We need to use the sword to open it. Long Xiaoqi, who had been silent, suddenly said. That's right. Wei Dongliu swung the sword, and the golden sword suddenly turned into a stream of light and sank into the lake. Then, the whole lake changed color. To be precise, a palace appeared in the reflection of the lake. Seeing this, Jiangling's mind moved slightly, and he immediately released the demon from his sleeve and jumped into the lake. There is another world under the water, she said quickly. Then let's go. Wei Dongliu suggested. Everyone agreed and followed the sword down. The moment they rushed into the lake, they saw the sky and the earth hanging upside down, and then broke out of the water. This place seemed to be the top of the Alao mountain, but there were no mountains in the distance, but a grey fog. There were no animals in the forest beside the lake, only the leaves rustled and swayed in the breeze. In the lake, stood a huge palace, with jade bricks and glazed tiles, set against the sparkling lake, and it looked magnificent in the sun. Wei Dongliu looked at the palace, and a word suddenly popped up in his mind. What a crystal palace. Of course, the crystal palace here does not refer to the kind of female protagonist with a bunch of hatchets inside, but the pure literal meaning. Facing this Jinglu palace, everyone had different expressions. Wen Yang and Gilai were extremely surprised. Obviously, judging from the style of this palace, it was obviously some kind of unexplored ancient ruins, and the probability of encountering what was inside was greatly increased. Jiangling and Long Xiaoqi were fascinated. This magnificent and exquisite palace perfectly hit the aesthetic taste of these 2 female monks. Let's find an entrance first and go in first. Wei Dongliu reminded. Everyone flew around the palace on their swords and saw that a large number of step foundation stones in the lower part of the palace were immersed in the lake. The upper part was full of pavilions and towers, which were lined up one after another. The hierarchical structure was extremely clear, and the style was also magnificent, with all kinds of elegant and gorgeous things. However, no matter the doors and windows were closed, there was no entrance to enter. Do you want to try to break in? Gilai's eyes were sinister. Okay, fellow Taoist Gil, go first. When Yang smiled, if anything happens, I will collect your body. Gilai laughed and said, I just said it casually. If it were an ordinary building, let alone closed doors and windows, even blue brick walls would be a matter of a monk's sword. But in this secret realm, the doors and windows that are tightly closed from the inside cannot be forcibly broken from the outside. Unless your rank is much higher than that of the secret realm, and you can violently crush everything, but such a secret realm is not worth exploring. The crowd circled around again, but still did not find the entrance. All the doors and windows were closed tightly, and there was no room to open them. Doyoe. Jiangling couldn't help asking, did Master Colin tell me how to deal with this situation? No. Wei Dongliu shook his head, it just told me to go find that Jing Palace, where there is a Tui Hall, and there are Jiehi and Zhucado in the hall. Jiehi looks like rice, with 12 ears on one plant. Zhucado looks like a small mulberry, with a stem like coral, and its juice flows like blood. Jiehi is useless to the human race, so it asked me to pick one for it. As for Zhucado, take it and put it in a bowl, and throw golden jade into it. It will turn into golden juice and jade liquid. If the human race drinks it, it can increase their power by 70 years, but it cannot be drunk twice. Everyone was thirsty after hearing this, but they secretly calculated in their hearts. From ancient times to now, the world has changed, things have changed, and the Jinnu Palace has no idea how it has changed. What if everyone finds the Tui Hall, and there is only Jiehi but no Zhucado in it? What should they do? It's okay if there is no Zhucado, at most they will admit that they have lost. But if there are red grass, but less than 5, how will everyone divide it? Is it a game of rock, paper, scissors? The magic monks, of course, have their own unique way of solving the problem. Now that the red grass has not been found, there is naturally no need to tear each other apart. When it is found, it will be the beginning of another war. After flying around the temple for a few more times, Longjiaki suddenly said, "Is the entrance at the bottom of the lake?" As soon as this was said, everyone was enlightened and their minds were suddenly opened. For the human race, the entrance was built at the bottom of the lake, which is obviously inconvenient for daily entry and exit, but who knows what the ancient demon race thinks? So everyone rushed into the bottom of the lake again. This time there was no golden sword to lead the way. Instead of returning to the real world, they went directly underwater. The golden sword is the key to go back and forth to the secret realm. If there is an internal fight in the subsequent team, they must seize the key, otherwise they will be trapped here. Everyone secretly remembered it in their hearts, and saw the jade wall of the underwater area of the temple exposed among the water plants and corals in front. There is another huge hole in the middle, without a door, open to the outside, and you can see the eternal lamp embedded in the wall inside. The entrance is indeed at the bottom of the lake. Jiangling was overjoyed when he saw this, and looked around to see if anyone was willing to go first. But he only saw Enyang, Gilai and others looking at each other. Everyone is an old demon, and no one is willing to go to the temple first. They are all waiting for the first person to test the water, and then compete for the second person's position. In this way, if there is any mechanism at the door, such as a trap specifically targeting the human race, it is easy to get rid of it in time. "I'll go first," Wei Dongliu said, clapping his hands, and before everyone could say anything, he took the lead and flying the sword. When he rushed to the entrance, he suddenly stopped and shouted in his heart, "A Jin, scan." Chapter 256. 10 Phases of Interpretation, Fox Demon Transformation. Is there a trap? Yes. What exactly is it? It's hard to say. Kunlun Mirror pondered, but there are indeed several mechanisms hidden behind the entrance, and it seems to have the function of detecting race. Detecting race? It's mainly to be wary of humans. Kunlun Mirror explained, if the intruder is detected to be human, the mechanism will be activated. I see. Wei Dongliu turned around and said to everyone, there seems to be a mechanism here. If it detects a human entering, it will be activated. Are you sure? Wen Yang asked with a frown. If you don't believe it, you can try it. Wei Dongliu said calmly. No one asked how he was sure, because the secret method is a secret of the cultivator and cannot be leaked. So everyone gathered in front of the entrance and exchanged glances with each other cautiously. If it's just to detect intruders, it's okay. I have my own ghosts to test. Wen Yang said seriously, but if it's like what Wei Dao said, it's specifically to detect humans, I guess it won't work. There's no village nearby. Gilai also frowned and said, otherwise, it's safest to catch a living person and throw it in to test. Wei Dongliu was very calm beside him, and he was secretly amazed. Good guy, he started by catching a living person to test, worthy of the devil's thinking. I can't even think of it. I have raised demons in my hands, not humans, so I can't test them. Jiangling said lightly. Can a doll be okay? Longjiaki suddenly said. Doll? Wei Dongliu asked in surprise. Take a paper doll, apply flesh and blood, use a secret method to connect the key, and make it as my substitute. Can it be identified as a human? Longjiaki asked seriously. Could it be the Donghuang sect's fake puppet death technique? Wen Yang suddenly asked in surprise, fellow Daoist Long has actually mastered this technique. That's exactly the technique. Longjiaki nodded, turned to look at Wei Dongliu and said, is it okay? Let's try it first. Wei Dongliu did not comment, turned around and asked Kunlun Mirror in his heart, what is the fake puppet death technique? It sounds very powerful. I haven't heard of the fake puppet death technique. It was King Ping Sword who answered, I have heard of the dragon puppet death technique. The dragon clan intimidates monsters with the power of dragons, and then uses the secret method of dragon breath to sacrifice and refine the monster's consciousness and intelligence, and refine the flesh and blood into a ball, but it is still alive, called a dragon puppet. When it is needed, the key is connected, so that restrictions, formations, and even heavenly tribulations can be turned into the dragon puppet as the dragon clan itself. It is a special way to save lives. I see. Wei Dongliu suddenly realized. Looking at Longjiaki again, she took out a chubby ball from her sleeve, bit her fingertips, and smeared the blood on it. The ball immediately expanded and turned into a girl who looked similar to Longjiaki, stumbling towards the entrance in front. Is Longjiaki a human? Wei Dongliu asked with a slight thought. No. Kunlun Jing replied, there's something wrong with that blood. Everyone stared at the dragon puppet rushing into the entrance. As soon as it took half a step, purple-black thunderbolts appeared around it, densely packed and frightening, all around, rushing towards the dragon puppet in the middle like a tidal wave. The dragon puppet was hit by the thunderbolt and immediately turned into a wisp of green smoke and disappeared. Dead. Long Xiaoqi spread his hands and said, "Is the restriction of thunder method?" Wen Yang slightly widened his eyes and his breathing became heavier. Thunder magic is naturally able to defeat evil spirits and has great lethality to ghosts, especially the Kunlun school's Jade Pivot Thunder. Although no cultivators have studied it so far, the Ghost Duo of all generations has repeatedly emphasized to its disciples that they should be particularly careful of thunder magic. If the restrictions in the Jinnu Palace are all related to thunder magic, it would be a great restraint for him, a disciple of the Ghost Duo. If I am right. Wei Dongliu said seriously, it seems to be the Arctic Renguichuanming water mine, which is extremely powerful underwater and has its own icy freezing effect. If ordinary magic weapons are hit by it, they will be directly frozen and broken, and their origin will be shattered. Duo Wei is well informed. Wen Yang said slowly, is there any solution to crack it? No. Wei Dongliu shook his head. Qiu Changtai also practiced the Arctic thunder, and naturally knew that this thunder seemed dark and lightless, but it was actually extremely violent and could hardly be dealt with except head-on. So everyone pondered in the water, the atmosphere gradually became anxious, and their expressions became bored. They have already found the Jinnu Palace. If they are blocked by a thunder magic restriction, they will definitely not be willing to turn around and leave. But they are at a loss as to how to continue to move forward. If they have a good idea, thunder magic will not be feared by the worldly cultivators. I do have a plan, but it depends on whether you dare to tell them. Kunlun Mirror said suddenly. What plan? Wei Dongliu was happy at first, and then said, is it a method of letting me pretend to send them away, and then you teleport me in, and finally I will take the things and say to them, look, I have brought them, which is a method of treating others as fools? Of course not. Kunlun Mirror immediately said angrily, in fact, that female devil can pass directly, think about it yourself. Jiangling. Wei Dongliu pondered for a moment, and suddenly came to his senses. 10-phase race of the law. The 10-phase race of the heavenly demon Duo is a first-class illusion in the world. It is said that one can freely change face, body shape, skin color, voice, and smell, and can also become a child, a young man, an old man, a strong man, or a woman. If one wants to disguise as a demon, and the restriction cannot be detected, won't it be activated? He immediately said solemnly, Duo Jiang, how about using your 10-phase release? Jiangling was stunned at first, and immediately said in surprise, wait. The 10-phase release is just an illusion. At most, it can deceive the spiritual sense of the cultivators. It may not work on the formation restriction. Then how do you know it won't work? Wei Dongliu asked with a smile. Jiangling's expression was stiff, and he only heard Wen Yang next to him say, indeed. Since there is no other way, why not ask Duo Jiang to give it a try? If Duo Jiang has other ways, you can also say it. Gilai narrowed his eyes and echoed. The two of them said one after another, and immediately forced Jiang the demon girl into a dead end. As long as she can't come up with a better way, everyone will force her to try. Jiangling was not a kind person, so how could he give in like this? Just as he was about to say some sinister threats, he suddenly remembered something. It was Wei Lahor's who discovered the trap at the entrance, and the test results also proved that he was not lying. If he wanted to kill people and monopolize the benefits from the beginning, why would he use such a low-level method? As long as he pretended not to know that there was a restriction of the entrance and let others try it, one of them would die first, and no one could blame him. Besides, since he claimed that the 10 phases release method could work on the restriction in front, he had to push me over to try it. If it turned out to be ineffective in the end, and I died in the restriction, wouldn't it immediately destroy his prestige in the team? What good would it do him? After careful analysis, he must have some confidence that the 10 phases release method could indeed pass through the entrance in front, but it was not convenient to say it clearly, so he was so sure. Thinking back to the last time on Jinmu Island, when she was suppressed by the purple gold bolt of the demon monk, the old thief Wei really saved her and kept his promise. Jiangling trusted him a little more, but said aggrievedly, "Since fellow Daoist Wei wants me to give it a try, I will entrust my life to fellow Daoist Wei." As she spoke mournfully, she activated the 10-phase release technique, and her face became slightly elongated, the space between her eyebrows became narrower, the hair under her nose gradually grew, and her ears moved upwards, finally turning into a pair of animal ears. A female weasel. No, it seemed to be a fox demon girl. with a face that was obviously a demon, which Jing carefully flew forward on her sword, ready to use the secret technique to escape immediately if the dangerous intuition appeared. Chapter 257 I Found the Hell. When Yang felt something was wrong. He had dealt with Jing before, and knew that although this witch was curious, she was extremely suspicious. For example, when she was halfway through exploring ancient ruins, she would suddenly run away. Of course, no one knew that Jing was extremely dependent on intuition, and they only thought that she was suspicious and was afraid of everything, so they laughed at her. Such an extremely cautious witch would actually put her life on his judgment just because of a word from Wade. It's a joke. I don't know how long these two have known each other. Could they be having an affair? Just as when Yang was speculating on all kinds of gossip, he saw that Jing was almost cautious step by step, and slowly moved to the position where the dragon puppet was destroyed by the thumb method restriction. No response. Wei Dongli was relieved, thinking that my Jing would not make mistakes. Wen Yang and others were also overjoyed. Finally, someone could pass the thumb method restriction. After being overjoyed, they immediately turned angry. Damn, why is that person not me? In this way, all the benefits inside will be taken away by Jing Monu. Jing also realized this. After discovering that his 10 phases of release could pass through the entrance restriction safely, he immediately flew into the inside with his sword, which was completely different from the previous hesitation. Her sword light disappeared in the depths of the corridor, and the 4 monks outside stood silently in the water, speechless to each other. Doorway, don't you want to explain? Wen Yang couldn't help but ask. What to explain? Wei Dongliu asked calmly. If this goes on, all the benefits inside will be swept away by Jing Monu. Gilai said in an irritable tone, we are picking up a fart outside. No. Wei Dongliu said, she will come back. Why not? Long Xiaoqi asked curiously, and his eyes blinked, as if to say is there really an affair between you two? Because the key is in my hand. Wei Dongliu said. Everyone was slightly stunned, and then they remembered the golden sword given to him by Colin, and they immediately became speechless. Jing Monu thought she was lucky, but wasn't she calculated to death by someone? In the end, it was a waste of time. Sure enough, before even half a minute had passed, Jing, who looked like a fox demon, appeared from the corner again, and greeted everyone as if nothing had happened. I just went in and took a look. It's okay. There is no mechanism, why are you looking at me like this? Doi Jing has entered the temple and still remembers old friends like me. It's really touching. Wen Yang said sinisterly. That's natural. After all, we're a team. Jing said shamelessly, turning his head to look at Wei Donliu again. Doorway, since I'm already in, is there any way to crack this mechanism? Count the third ever-burning lamp from the left to the right on the wall, and rotate it clockwise once. The Kunlun mirror prompted. Wei Dongliu copied it exactly, and Jing did the same, only to hear the sound of arc bursting around him. Solved? Gilai asked doubtfully. Yeah. Wei Dongliu got the prompt from the Kunlun mirror and took the lead to move forward. Everyone watched him walk into the entrance calmly in silence, and nothing happened. The restriction had really been lifted. Gilai and others hurriedly followed and joined Wei Dongliu and Jing. Finally, they entered the Jinglu Palace. Everyone was obviously relieved, but they couldn't help but worry. Even the restriction of the entrance was so difficult to break, how dangerous would it be inside? They could only take it one step at a time. After a while, Wen Yang suddenly spoke in secret again and said to Jing, who exactly is this fellow Daoist Wei? How do you know him? That's a long story. Jing laughed. A long story means that if you insist on asking, I can only make up a lie for you. Wen Yang stopped talking at the right time and changed the subject and said, do you think this person is a bit like, where is he from? Where? Jing didn't understand. Wen Yang said cryptically, who is the leader among the 6 paths? It's either the heavenly demon path or the ghost path. Jing had just said half of the sentence when she suddenly realized, could it be the hell path? No way, how did you tell that? Jing was in doubt. It's because I can't tell it, I suspect he's from the hell path. Wen Yang analyzed for her, look, aren't the people from the hell path also mysterious, but ridiculously strong? Jing knew what he was referring to. It is said that more than 700 years ago, there was a big man in the nascent soul realm in the mortal path. For some reason, perhaps he was dissatisfied with the Hellpath's long-term disappearance, or wanted to deprive the other party of its prestige as the direct line of Jiri Zhao, so he took the lead in convening a gathering of the Six Paths and claimed that the sects that did not attend the meeting would be expelled from the Six Paths. This was obviously aimed at the Hellpath. Because after Jiri Zhao was defeated in the war between Chan Zhao and Jiri Zhao, the founder of Helldao, Wang Lao Mu, then called Wang Shen Mu, issued an order when passing down the Dao tradition, strictly prohibiting disciples from participating in public activities under the name of Helldao and walking outside. In other words, you can visit other Taoist friends in private as a Helldao monk, or participate in public activities with a disguised identity, but you cannot show off in the name of Helldao. In short, Helldao is not allowed to appear in front of the world. This mortal Dao boss wants to hold a gathering of the Six Paths, which clearly shows that he calculated that Helldao dare not show up, and wants to take the opportunity to deprive them of their status and prestige. The response of Helldao is also very simple. On the day of the gathering of the Six Paths, the Union boss who led the meeting did not come himself, and later it was discovered that he and hundreds of Jindan and Foundation building disciples were all killed in their own sect's residence in Watai Mountains. In short, when it comes to Helldao, everyone's first impression is mysterious, because not many cultivators have dealt with them, and most of those who claim to have dealt with them are lying and bragging. The second impression is powerful, because no one has ever seen them take action, and most of those who have seen them die, so it is probably thought that they must be extremely powerful, otherwise how can they maintain a sense of mystery? Thinking carefully, Witch Jing suddenly realized that all the characteristics of Wei Laoze are almost exactly the same as those of Helldao. First of all, his origins are mysterious, and he is very secretive about it, but he knows all the situations in the world of cultivation like the back of his hand. In fact, Helldao has a source of information. Secondly, he admitted that he has no master and is a self-taught casual cultivator, but his strength is ridiculously strong. In fact, it is the resources of Helldao that are cultivating him. Finally, learning the way of formation requires a lot of resources, and it cannot be done without a large sect. The rookies from the other 5 realms are all here, and none of them knew Wei Laoze before. And it is unlikely that the orthodox monks practice magic. In summary, the probability that Wei Laoze was born in a Hell realm is very high. It can be confirmed. Chapter 258. Wei Mojin appears again. As they continued forward, they saw a mirror at the end of the corridor. It was a huge mirror like a floor-to-ceiling window. 5 different faces were reflected in the mirror. Wen Yang had different faces on the left and right sides, a man on the left and a woman on the right. The left side looked like a dried and rotten corpse, while the right side was transparent and dark like a ghost. Gilai had an old Buddha face, with angry eyes and a grin, looking like a madman. However, tears were flowing from his eyes and blood was flowing from the corners of his mouth, but there was also compassion in his madness. Long Xiaoqi had a strange human face, with a dragon beard and a long mouth, and horns on his head. His pupils were golden and vertical, his eyes were dull, and he stared straight at himself outside the mirror. Jianglin was a ball of skin, sometimes concave and sometimes convex, sometimes bulging and sometimes deflated. The 7 orifices sprayed a lot of black mist outward, like a leaking high-pressure balloon. As for Wei Dongliu, he was a strange faceless man. Countless faces flashed across his face frequently, as if every one of them was his face, and as if none of them belonged to him. Everyone stared at themselves in the mirror, silent. After a long while, Gilai murmured, "What the hell is this? There is no trace of illusion in it." Jianglin said seriously, "It seems that it only distorted our image to a certain extent. Can I smash it?" Wen Yang asked in a gloomy tone, obviously very dissatisfied with the image in the mirror. "It's better not to." Wei Dongliu took out the golden sword, held it in his palm, and threw it forward like a dart. The sword sank into the mirror, and the reflections of everyone disappeared instantly. The huge mirror opened like a door, revealing the passage behind. "So what is it?" Gilai's tone was still a little vague. "No matter what it is, just pass it," Wen Yang said impatiently. Wei Dongliu watched calmly from the side and asked Kunlun Mirror secretly, "What was in the mirror just now?" "Template mapping." Kunlun Mirror said concisely, "You won't understand even if I tell you." Wei Dongliu: "Hey, how can I understand if you don't tell me?" Puzzle Mirror: "Die." As they continued to walk forward, they came to a spacious place similar to the main hall. Kunlun and Shushan both have this kind of hall, where ancestor worship and other ceremonies are held, so they are often decorated in a solemn and magnificent manner, otherwise, the majesty of the sect cannot be reflected. However, although the main hall of Jinyu Temple is also magnificent, it is probably because the evacuation was too hasty before, and the scene is almost in a mess. The overturned table, the cups and plates that rolled to the ground, and the torn curtains vividly show the tense atmosphere of the monster tribe at the time when they were almost desperate. Be careful. Jiangling suddenly said, the monster tribe is evacuated for nearly 100,000 years. The temple itself is fine, but how could these furniture be preserved intact until now? Upon hearing this, everyone immediately gathered in the center to avoid touching the table and cups on the ground. Doorway, what do you think? Wen Yang suddenly asked, as if seeking his advice. Illusion. Wei Dongliu said concisely. It's actually an illusion. Gilai said in surprise. He immediately bit his finger, wiped his forehead with blood, made a strange spell, and then stared. No change. Whether it was the table, cups, curtains, or even the gold paint on the pillars, there was no sign of aging. It seemed as if the evacuation happened yesterday. He couldn't help but look at Wei Dongliu again with suspicion, but he only saw the other party snap his fingers. The Kunlun mirror cooperated with the secret method of breaking the illusion, and all the surrounding furniture disappeared in an instant. The only thing left was the wall in front of the main hall, which was also inlaid with a huge mirror. A figure emerged from the mirror. At first it was blurry, but as he got closer and closer, his appearance became clearer and clearer. Until he stood in front of the mirror, everyone saw that it was Gilai. To be precise, it was Gilai who looked like the devilish Buddha in the mirror before. The devilish Buddha performed a single-handed salute, said Amitabha, and then stepped out of the mirror and walked into the hall. What the hell are you? Gilai screamed. Amitabha. The demon Buddha's eyes widened, his teeth gnashed, his expression angry and ferocious. But for some reason, there was a look of compassion in his eyes, and his tone was gentle and compassionate. Gilai, I am the good thoughts in your heart. You disguise yourself with killing and tyranny, but it is to prevent the good thoughts in your heart from, shut up. Gilai didn't dare to let him finish, and immediately drew out the blood-colored flying sword, gritted his teeth and killed it fiercely. The demon Buddha faced the blood-colored flying sword, did not dodge, just raised the Buddhist beads in his left hand and swung them, and then turned them around the sword several times, entangled it and resisted it, and it couldn't cut it down at all. Jiangling waved his robe sleeves, and 3 demon heads flew out, and turned into giants with green faces and fangs in the air. They were the 36 gods and demons of the heavenly demon blow, and they grabbed the demon Buddha fiercely. The demon Buddha struck back, and met the god and demon with a palm. The latter's arms exploded from palm to elbow, and from elbow to shoulder, with bones shattered and flesh and blood scattered. Blood-drinking wrathful lord. Jiangling screamed, old demon Gu, have you cultivated the Dharmakaya of Haruka? That's not me. Gilai yelled like crazy. Jiangling pinched the dough formula, controlling the 2 gods and demons to deal with the demon Buddha, avoiding a head-on confrontation with him. Wen Yang put 2 fingers together and launched the Ghost Do's attack spell Grudge Curse Binding Killing, and countless grey ghosts rushed towards it. The demon Buddha held the Buddhist beads in his right hand and wrestled with Gilai, who was sweating profusely while controlling the flying sword. His left hand formed a palm to deal with the god and demon of Jiangwich. Suddenly, as if by magic, he took out a purple gold bowl from his sleeve, just in time to catch the grey ghost rushing over. Wen Yang suddenly realized that the connection with the ghost was broken, and he was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He shouted in fear, Golden Core Realm. The other party can easily take away my ghost, he must be in the Golden Core Realm. If he can fight the enemy with the blood-drinking wrathful lord, what else can he be but the Golden Core Realm? Gilai shouted in fear and embarrassment. At this time, he was completely at a disadvantage. The flying sword in his hand was pulled back and forth by the Buddha's beads, and he was in a mess. Get out of the way. Let me do it. Long Xiaki suddenly rushed forward, and her arms quickly expanded into giant claws, and slapped the top of the Buddha's head. The power of her giant claws was even better than that of Jiangmunu's god and demon. The slapping brought a strong sound of wind. The Buddha dared not take it head-on, and cleverly stepped back to avoid the giant claws and slapped Long Xiaki with his backhand elbow. Gilai wanted to take the opportunity to take back the flying sword, but the opponent's beads turned, and the blood-colored flying sword was thrown into the corner and could not move. Then the demon Buddha struck Gilai with another palm strike, and then strode towards Wen Yang and the others. Wen Yang clenched his teeth, and made a spell with his hands, as if he was going to use his secret method to fight to the death. Jiangling also summoned 5 more gods and demons to block him, but he quietly retreated. The demon Buddha kept walking, chanting, You're originally a floating duckweed, why do you want to live like a pine tree? I will let you be free now, wait a moment. He struck forward with both palms, and a sign light appeared on his palms, and the sound of thunder roared with the wind of his fist. One palm shattered Wen Yang's ghosts, and another palm repelled Jing Witch's gods and demons. Just as he was about to kill the two on the spot, a flying sword suddenly came from the side and blocked his iron fist. Wei Dongliu was seen holding the sword in one hand, his hair and beard were all red, his pupils were bloodshot, and he was already in a state of a chaotic demon body. He looked around with a sneer and said, "How can such a small fry like you beat you like this?" As soon as he finished speaking, the demon Buddha suddenly retreated and growled, "Where did this evil demon come from? No, judging from the aura, you are the descendant of a Benraidshasa. How dare you ask about my origins?" Wei Dongliu swung the sword with his backhand, and the demon Buddha stretched out his hands to block, but the 10,000 Ghosts' evil sword pierced through his palms and stabbed straight into the face. Chapter 259. Which Jing has been sunk. Hearing the roar of the demon Buddha, everyone was slightly startled. What is a Benraidshasa? Only Wen Yang was stunned for a moment, and suddenly he was shocked. A Benraidshasa, isn't that the demon lord inhabited by hell? How is it possible? As the judge of the Ingosto, he naturally knows more about the Nine Nether Yellow Spring than other cultivators. The Nine Nether Yellow Spring is the place where souls reincarnate, and it is also the special secret realm that the Ingosto cultivators can try to go to after reaching the Golden Core realm. And below the Nine Nether Yellow Spring is the multiple hells. Compared with the Nine Nether Yellow Spring, hell is undoubtedly much more dangerous. The Union realm cultivators dare not easily get involved. Only the few words left by the former Jirizhou immortals allow the cultivators to barely take a peek. The lowest level of hell is Avid by Hell, which is the least mentioned among all hells. Among them, there is only one sentence in a certain book that involves the Avid by Demon Lord, the most evil and filthy, the incarnation of filth. Let's not talk about other things first. Just for Wei Dongliu's red hair and beard and bloodshot pupils, it's absolutely not an exaggeration to call him Demon Lord. Wen Yang was in doubt, while Jian Glin was stunned on the spot, and suddenly covered his nose and groaned. So handsome. Wei Dongliu's appearance as a demon lord was domineering, powerful, and evil. Almost nothing about him didn't dance to her sexual preferences, so that which Jian even had the urge to stick to him regardless of anything. But after all, she was a psychologically mature cultivator, and of course she would not be easily swayed by instinctive impulses. Biting her tongue lightly, she suppressed all her thoughts, and summoned the gods and demons with a form to block the way of the demon Buddha from both sides and the back. Demon Lord Wei held the Wongi Shi Jing sword and slashed it lightly. The demon Buddha was caught in a dilemma, and he was not as calm as he had been when fighting 3 people alone before. He even took a punch from the god of form with his back, but he didn't dare to be stacked by the 10,000 Ghosts' evil sword. He took a few steps back and suddenly felt an itch on the back of his neck. A golden silkworm Gyu had already bitten his neck. The demon Buddha tried to slap it, but his arm turned black halfway up and he fell forward powerlessly. Wei Dongliu raised the 10,000 Ghosts' evil sword, and the tip of the sword just passed along the demon Buddha's neck, separating his head and body cleanly. Then he threw the golden sword at the mirror with his backhand, and the mirror wall suddenly opened, revealing the corridor leading to the inner hall. Long Xiaoqi woke up faintly, Gilai struggled to get up, Jian Glin's eyes were erratic, and Wen Yang's expression was dull. At this time, Wen Yang was completely stupid, with only one thought left in his mind. Avid by Demon Lord, infernal hell, who dares to say that you are not in the hell? Everyone looked at each other, and for a moment, they were all speechless about the fact that the demon Buddha was killed by Wei Dongliu. They didn't know what attitude to take next. The demon cult emphasizes the strong is the king, and your strength determines others' attitude towards you. When the 5 people first met, Wei Dongliu used the 100 poisons gold and silkworm gear to subdue Gilai in a flash, and won the position of leader in the team because everyone thought they couldn't stand the 100 poisons gold and silkworm gear hugging their faces. Because of this, when the 5-man team set out, Wei Dongliu suddenly received a message from Kalin, saying that he would change to the southern route. Although everyone was shocked and hesitant, they finally believed in his decision. However, being able to defeat these foundation-building cultivators and being able to defeat a Jindan cultivator are not at the same level of strength. To use a popular metaphor, the former can make everyone recognize you as big brother, but at least we are still peers. The latter means that we are no longer on the same level, and everyone should treat you as a senior. It's not impossible. The demon sect monks are flexible, but calling him brother first and master later is like tearing off your face and throwing it on the ground. After staring at each other for a long time, Gilai made a decision first. The magic Buddha's skills and fighting style are exactly the same as his own, just like the future version of Gilai in the Jindan realm. Even I, who has already formed a pill, was beaten by the other party. How can I have the face to call him Doya? Is it worthy? It's better to just lick his ass. So he quickly put on a smiling face, and was about to say something respectful and flattering, when he saw Jiangmonu rushing to aid Liu in an instant at a much faster speed than him, and said enthusiastically, Doya, what kind of skills are you using? Wei Dongliu looked at her coldly and said nothing. Seeing that he didn't take action directly, and there was no warning from the danger instinct, Jianglin immediately felt relieved, and the smile on his face became brighter. She is a witch of the heavenly demon though. She is best at observing people's words and expressions and manipulating people's hearts. She also noticed that Wei Laoze was in an abnormal state at this time. It seemed to be some kind of Dharma body. Well, combined with what the demon Buddha said before, let's call it Avakai Demon Lord Dharma body. This Avakai Demon Lord Dharma body will obviously change Wei Laoze's character, making him unruly and uninhibited. Of course, this actually adds to his charm. Of course, these are not the point. The point is that although his mind has changed, he has not lost his reason. As long as Wei Laoze is still rational, there is no reason to hurt me. After all, I am helping to raise his 2 apprentices. Doorway, why is your hair red? Jianglin shamelessly stuck to him and stretched out his hand to touch his hair, but was impatiently slapped away by Wei Dongliu. Don't touch me. Doorway, what's wrong with your eyes? There's a pupil in your pupil. It's pretty nice. Get lost. Which Jiang was unmoved, just smiling and pestering Wei Dongliu, constantly chatting with him. The admiration in her eyes almost turned into substance and overflowed. Seeing this, the others also breathed a sigh of relief. Thanks to Doya Jiang's shameless jokes, the original awkward atmosphere was interrupted, so that everyone didn't have to hesitate whether to put down their dignity and kneel down to lick her. She lipped like this, what's wrong with us saying a few compliments? So everyone began to flatter her. Thanks to Doya, you killed this demon Buddha. Wen Yang said with a smile, otherwise we would be in danger now. Doya, this is the Dharmakaya of the Demon Lord. Gilai also showed an admiring expression. Before the golden elixir, you have the Dharmakaya first. Doya has a bright future. Awesome. Long Xiaki said. Wei Dongliu ignored all the flattery from these people, and just kept waving his hands to drive away the shameless Jiangmo envy. Doya, how long can you maintain this Dharma body? A whole day. Doya, I'll pick out a black robe for you when we go back. It looks better with the black and red one. Doya, can you scold me again? Like, I'm not interested in you, woman. Wei Dongliu looked at her expressionlessly, silently practicing the demon eliminating upper spirit separation clear and turbid sutra, and transformed all the demon essence in his body into Taoist true essence. Soon, his hair turned from blood red to winged black, the double pupils in his eyes quickly faded, and the unruly and evil temperament disappeared from his face, turning into an expressionless iceberg face. Jianglin blinked his eyes, feeling suddenly empty in his heart, as if he had lost something very important. Ah, it's boring. Let's continue on our way. She turned around, pointed at the entrance of the corridor ahead, and said indifferently to Wei Dongliu, time is running out. Wen Yang and Gilai laughed awkwardly, paying attention to Wei Dongliu's expression. Long Xiaqi's eyes wandered back and forth between the two of them, as if he was very curious about why Jianglin was so respectful at first and then so arrogant. Yeah. Wei Dongliu didn't care about it, and took the lead and walked forward. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 260. Encircling and killing the two-faced ghost. After passing through the main hall, there is the side hall. In most sects, the side hall is an auxiliary building of the main hall. For example, when the immortals gather in the main hall, the disciples will wait in the side hall for the immortals to summon them. When everyone left the main hall and walked along the corridor into the side hall, they saw that there was nothing here, only a huge mirror embedded on the opposite wall. Everyone showed a bitter expression at the same time. It is natural for Jinyu Temple to have mirror-related restrictions, and everyone has expected it. However, thinking about what will appear next still makes everyone very headache. The moment they entered the side hall, a figure appeared on the mirror. The two-faced ghost was wearing a Taoist robe, with a charming and herbaceous figure. The left side of his face was dry like a male corpse, and the right side was ghostly like a female ghost. He stepped out of the mirror with a full gaze and asked in a soft female voice, "Brother, is my body still usable?" Before he finished speaking, Wen Yang had already jumped up and chanted a spell. "Black Empire Ghost Demon, take Shuan Waterborne." As soon as he finished speaking, a child ghost appeared at his feet. It was 5 inches long, wearing black feather clothes and holding a black banner. The child giggled and shook the black banner in his hand, and a large amount of black water as black as ink was generated, attacking the two-faced ghost. The two-faced ghost said resentfully, "Brother, why did you ruin my voice? It's so hoarse and so unpleasant." It pointed its right arm at the black water and said a few unknown spells. The black water immediately split to both sides and rushed past its side, without even touching it at all. In ghost magic, it can be summoned as if by the heart. It is indeed already in the golden core realm. Wen Yang's face froze upon seeing this, and he was terrified. He knew that it was impossible to defeat the other party in a short time, so he had to turn around and shout, "Doyoe, I beg you to help me. I will owe you a favor in the future, and I will follow your lead." "Wait a moment, you hold it back," Wei Donliu said calmly with his hands behind his back. "It will take about 10 breaths for me to summon my Dharma body." Wen Yang almost vomited blood when he heard this. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" However, thinking about the situation in the main hall before, it was only after everyone was beaten to a pulp by the demon Buddha that Wei Donliu transformed into the Dharma body of the Avitai demon lord and attacked. He could not accuse him at all. He could only silently recite grudge, curse, bind, kill, pulling out countless great ghosts, and violently attacking the two-faced ghost opposite, not seeking to kill or injure, but only to contain it, while turning around and shouting, "3 Taoist friends, help me kill it. Otherwise, we will all be in endless trouble." Jianglin and others are experienced magic cultivators, the kind who can guess the meaning of 3 sentences after hearing 1 sentence, and of course they instantly understood Wen Yang's subtext. This monster mimicked in the mirror knows the biggest weakness deep in our hearts. You help me cover up and kill it, and when your monsters come out later, I will naturally help you cover up and kill them. Therefore, everyone also took action together. Gilai pulled out the blood-colored flying sword with his right hand, and rushed to the side of the two-faced ghost in an instant with superb body skills, and stabbed the sword towards its chest. At the same time, his left arm also condensed into a black light of iron blue, and smashed it at the chest of the two-faced ghost. When he swung his fist, there was a faint sound of wind and thunder, just like the blood-drinking wrathful lord used by the demon Buddha before. The blood-drinking wrathful lord of Shirudao is a Dharmakaya with great power in every move. The current Gilaomo has not yet reached the realm of the demon Buddha, where he can send and receive freely and freely. The thunder is deep but not sharp, and the speed is also slower. The two-faced ghost seemed to have no weight, and suddenly floated back, avoiding the sword and fist attack of Gilaomo. At the same time, he stretched out his slender jade hand, held it on his lips, and blew a breath at him briskly. As soon as the white gas came out, it instantly turned into a large amount of frost and snow, and caught Gilai, who had no time to dodge. He swayed a few times and fell to the ground to the side, his whole body frozen into purple. "Duo," he called out. Wen Yang immediately warned, "Don't get close to it." "How can you fight if you don't get close?" Long Xiaki said coldly, standing 5 steps away from the two-faced ghost and shooting the flying sword in his hand towards the opposite side. Her sword-controlling skills were not very good, but she threw the sword with her hands, and the force was stronger than the sword-controlling skills. With the speed of lightning, she nailed the two-faced ghost directly to the wall next to her. However, the two-faced ghost was pierced through the chest, but it seemed nothing happened. It just chuckled, and its body suddenly split open, spitting out the flying sword in its body, and then closed again, and the wound was gone. Joint-splitting technique. Wen Yang shouted again in panic, pure sword cutting and stabbing the useless against it. "What kind of weird technique are you practicing?" Jianglin complained, "You can't get close, you can't control a sword, how can you fight it?" She controlled the gods and demons with forms to surround the two-faced ghosts, but soon 2 of them were frozen to death, which made her very distressed. Hold them. Wen Yang was also very depressed. Duo-he-cold technique and joint-splitting technique were secret techniques that he had practiced for many years but still couldn't master. At this time, this monster was using them very skillfully, which made him very jealous. "Trap your ass." A proud voice suddenly came from behind. Everyone looked back in surprise, only to see that Wei Donliu finally converted all his true energy into magic energy again. His hair and beard turned red, double pupils appeared in his eyes, and he waved his arm lightly, and the Wang Yi Shi Jing sword shot out and pierced the chest of the two-faced ghost again. The two-faced ghost wanted to use the same trick again, using the bone joint splitting technique to escape, but suddenly felt a strange and powerful suction coming from the sword. After barely resisting it for a moment, it suddenly cried out, and its soul was sucked into the sword, and its body lost its life. Wow! Before everyone could breathe a sigh of relief, Jingmonu ran to Wei Donliu first, hugged his arm and said with a smile, "You are worthy at being fellow Daoist Wei. Get out of here. How did you do that? Didn't you say that the sword stab is ineffective?" Jinglin was driven away by him, but she didn't feel ashamed at all. She came over from the side again, with a curious light in her eyes, just like Mishi when she first saw Qiu Chang Tian. Could it be the magic of the Avidai Demon Lord? "Oh, you don't have to answer, I'm not prying into your privacy, I'm just asking casually." Wei Dongliu stared coldly and was about to withdraw the magic element again, only to see Wen Yang wink. Long Xiaqi immediately hugged Jingmonu from behind and dragged her away directly. What a joke. If Wei Donliu couldn't bear it and withdrew the Dharma body of the Avidai Demon Lord again, and waited for the next level to condense it again, wouldn't everyone have to drag it for another 10 breaths? As Jirohi's cold technique retreated, Gilai's frozen body slowly recovered. He trembled as he took out the pill from his arms and took one. His face immediately turned visibly red. Looking at Wen Yang and Wei Donliu again, Wen Yang was sincerely thanking Wei Donliu, while the latter folded his arms and did not answer, obviously too lazy to respond. Which Jing was threatening to break free from Long Xiaqi's restraints and go to communicate with Demon Lord Wei. Chapter 261. Northern Lightning, Killing the Dragon Girl. Finally, the two-faced ghost was solved, and Wen Yang secretly breathed a sigh of relief. When he came back to his senses, he saw Gilai approaching him and whispered, "How is it? How much have you understood?" "What do you mean by how much?" Wen Yang frowned and asked, and then he immediately reacted. Since setting out from the East Empire Temple, Gilai has been clearing the way all the way, and his fighting method basically relies on blood-colored flying swords and high-speed footwork. The reason is simple. The Shirdada monks of Tipchen Mountain basically rely on sword control to fight in the foundation building stage. However, the appearance of the Demon Buddha has pointed out a new path for Gilai. This guy has all of Gilai's skills, including those he has learned and is learning, and he also has the cultivation of the Golden Core Realm and the God level. The tactics he uses are highly mature, which are many times more powerful than what Gilai is using now. Therefore, after dealing with the Demon Buddha, Gilai also summed up his experience in time, referred to the opponent's fighting style, combined the imperfect blood-drinking wrathful venerable Dharmakaya with the Shirdado sword-controlling technique he was used to, and developed a new tactical route. Although he was beaten by the two-faced ghost in the face-to-face encounter in his first attempt, it was because the opponent's realm crushed him. The Jirohi cold technique naturally restrains close enemies, which does not mean that Gilai's new attempt is meaningless. Thinking about it this way, can I also learn something from the two-faced ghost's tactics? For example, use the Jirohi cold technique to form a close-range defense layer, force the enemy to attack with long-range sword control, and then use the bone joint separation technique to respond. Combined with the performance of the two-faced ghost just now, Wen Yang seemed to have a sudden realization. Everyone continued to walk forward, passing through the side hall, and it was the back hall. If the side hall is where the disciples waiting to enter the hall live, then the back hall is where the immortals go after leaving the main hall. There may be foreign monks visiting the main hall, but the back hall often does not allow outsiders to set foot. Arriving at the back hall, everyone saw that the desks were neatly arranged, the incense burners were complete, and the purple gold pillars hung curtains with large characters embroidered with gold thread. The dragon text of the 8 powers of Yuanzi. It is impossible to name the beginning of the Tao, but it is possible to form the rest of the Tao. Those who know the beginning are in harmony with the ancestor of Yuanzi, and those who know the rest are in harmony with the pivot of yin and yang. Long Xiaqi only took a look and immediately couldn't move her eyes away. Her eyes were wide open, as if she was memorizing the contents at full speed. Wei Dongliu also took a glance and told Jing to record it, and then turned to the mirror wall on the right. At the other end of the back hall away from the main hall, there was also a huge mirror on the wall. A figure in it quickly approached and stepped out of the mirror in an instant. It was a little girl with a delicate figure. There was no trace of monster on her face. She was completely different from the image of the dragon beard and long mouth in the mirror before. Xiaoqi. She stared at Long Xiaoqi and said in a low voice, "Do you still remember that you are?" Before she finished speaking, Long Xiaoqi rushed in front of it at a speed that was almost flashing, and smashed down with his right fist. In a hurry, the little girl actually reacted immediately and punched Long Xiaoqi head on. The two of them retreated half a step at the same time, trying to relieve the force of the collision. The overwhelming force directly cracked the floor under their feet, and even the ground shook violently. Wei Yang quickly flew into the air with his sword, and Gilai directly stabilized his body with the iron horse bridge. However, Jianglin was unstable and wanted to grab Wei Dongliu next to him, but he grabbed nothing and almost fell to the ground. Wei Mojin had already rushed out and controlled the flying sword to cut down the opponent. As a result, the little girl punched back and hit the Wangyi Shijin sword, and it was directly knocked out. Feeling the abundant power from the sword, Wei Dongliu's face darkened slightly. Good guy, is this not going to hide his identity as a demon? Oh, it was simulated by the mirror, so it's okay. Waving his hand to pull back the Wangyi Shijin sword, Wei Mojin smiled sinisterly, and pinched a few sword gestures in his hand, ready to start showing off his skills. The Wangyi Shijin sword shot out again, and the little girl was fighting with Long Xiaoqi, and impatiently grabbed it, but the Wangyi Shijin sword shook in a Z shape and easily dodged it in disguise. Gilai, who was waiting for an opportunity to move nearby, saw this exquisite sword-controlling technique, and suddenly an instinctive fear surged from his heart, and his entire scalp was numb. This move has a name in Shushan sword-controlling technique, called vertical and horizontal cross-cutting, that is, the flying sword shoots vertically, and when it encounters an obstruction, it suddenly moves horizontally, bypasses the defense like lightning, and then stabs quickly. Because this move requires too high reaction speed and controllability of the sword Immortal, among all the foundation-building disciples of Shushan, there are no more than 10 who can use this move, but each of them is a big worry for Shirodo. For example, the grass-cutting sword Immortal and Zexu, the 4 strongest men of Shushan, Lin Juanzhen, Juanfen Hegai, Yuanchinu and Lingpun, as well as rookies such as Sima Chang'an and Bishan, all of them are not easy to deal with. Gilai only took a few glances at Wei Mojin's beautiful swordsmanship and immediately judged that he was not inferior to the 4 strongest men, and was even comparable to the grass-cutting sword Immortal. The little girl opposite did not expect Wei Dongliu to use the sword like this, and was directly pierced through the throat by this sword that was like a fairy from the sky. She tightened her neck muscles, and the wound that was bleeding like a spring stopped bleeding instantly. Then she grabbed the hilt of the 10,000 Ghosts evil sword, pulled it out as if she didn't feel any pain, and continued to swing it to kill Long Xiaoqi. Long Xiaoqi had no idea that the opponent was still barehanded the moment before, and the next second he was holding a sword. He couldn't dodge for a while, and several wounds were added to his body. Wei Dongliu secretly pinched the formula, and the 10,000 Ghosts evil sword vibrated violently, but he couldn't break free from the little girl's grasp. Thinking that there were people watching him, he knew that he couldn't go on like this. In order to maintain the mysterious boss's status, he had to use a trump card. Wei Dongliu sneered and stepped forward, reaching out to try to take back the Wangyi Shijin sword. The little girl punched back and knocked Long Xiaoqi back, then turned around and stabbed Wei Dongliu with the sword. Wei Mojin just dodged sideways at the right time and slapped the sword with his hand. True Spirit Seal sword technique. At this time, he just turned his back to the 3 people, opened his 5 fingers, and covered the black light of the Arctic thunder in his palm. Everyone saw Wei Mojin slap his immortal sword, and then the sword immediately burst into black light. The little girl opposite suddenly changed her face and quickly let go of the sword. But it was too late. The Arctic thunder that specifically attacked the Dragon Clan rushed into her arm along the hilt of the sword, crushing the giant rotten along the meridians, and conquering cities everywhere. She had to grab her right arm with her left hand and tear it off at the shoulder. Wei Dongliu stretched out his hand and took back the Wangyi Shijin sword covered with Arctic thunder, and then continued to stab her. The opponent was seriously injured by the Arctic thunder, so he didn't dare to take its head on at this time. He turned around and ran, but was blocked by Long Xiaoqi. The two of them attacked from the front and back, and after a few rounds, they successfully killed the dragon girl. Long Xiaoqi breathed a sigh of relief, then suddenly cheered up, stepped back a few steps, and looked at the black sword in Wei Dongliu's hand, obviously with a strong sense of fear. That thing is obviously a kind of skill that specifically restrains the Dragon Clan, but she doesn't know what it is, and how to deal with it. Well, I don't usually offend this fellow Daoist way. I should be able to go back alive this time. In the subsequent trip, we must not conflict with the other party, Long Xiaoqi thought to himself, and forced a smile on his originally expressionless face, and said, Thank you, fellow Daoist Wei, for your help. Wei Dongliu did not answer, but dispersed the true spirit seal sword technique with an expressionless face, which made Long Xiaoqi quietly relieved. Chapter 262 Kunlun Mirror Fragments obtained. After passing the 3 levels, everyone began to have ulterior motives. Gilai, Wenyang and Long Xiaoqi, mainly because their secrets were revealed by the mirror monster. Although only a few words were revealed, who knows how much the teammates around them guessed. They are all 1,000-year-old foxes, so why play Lao Zai? Another worry is the mirror monster corresponding to a Dongliu that they will encounter later in theory. Of course, they are not interested in what secrets Wei Dongliu has. They are mainly worried that this person is so strong that the mirror monster's strength will break through the sky and kill everyone directly when they meet. Jianglin is also a little worried. On the one hand, he is afraid of what kind of secrets his corresponding mirror monster will reveal. On the other hand, he seems to be unable to think of any secrets of his own, which will cause social death after being exposed. Although this lady does things by any means, she has never done anything secretive that cannot be told to outsiders. Even so, she still leaned against the great demon Lord Wei and said delicately, "Wei, if the twisted me appears in the next level, you must help me kill it in time. Go away." Wei Dongliu's answer was always concise. For Jianglin, as long as Wei Dongliu did not chase her away, all his answers would be understood by her as right, so she immediately smiled like a flower. "Thank you, Wei, I have nothing to repay you. I will report to my master in the future and I will marry you. I don't need cattle and horses." When Yang, Gilai and Long Xiaoqi walked behind, listening to the two people's nagging speech, even Long Xiaoqi, who was paralyzed, had some cheek twitching. Two-licking. Of course, two-licking is not a derogatory term for them, the demon monks. Too stupid is. The reason why everyone felt embarrassed was just that they felt that they could not be like the demon girl Jiang, and they had to stick to each other despite the cold words. When Yang and Gilai knew that they were at a gender disadvantage and could not act too intimate, Long Xiaoqi was at an age disadvantage, and Wei Dongliu probably would not like this either. Only the young and beautiful Jiang Mengnu, who was good at fighting and sticky, could be so shameless and give full play to her advantages. After passing through the inner hall, we came to the inner room. If the inner hall is the shared back hall of the immortals, then the inner room is often a functional place dedicated to a certain immortal. For example, in the back hall of Kunlun Tianzu Yuxu Palace, there is a lecture room, which is specially used for Ziwei's head teacher to give lectures to the chief disciples of all generations. This lecture room is a typical back hall in the room. The inner room here seems to be an alchemy room. On the floor in the center, the Chuanji Bagyua diagram is engraved. A huge purple gold alchemy furnace stands in the center of the Bagyua. It is dark inside and seems to have nothing. On the left and right walls are shelves made of coral bones, on which are placed various bottles, gourds, and alchemy, which are dazzling. Everyone was a little jealous, but they didn't move their feet, because it was probably an illusion. The wall in front was still occupied by a huge mirror. A shadow appeared on it, and suddenly rushed out of the mirror. It was a bulging ball, which kept spraying black air in all directions, and suddenly condensed into a human figure. The facial features of the human figure looked exactly like those of the Jiang witch, delicate and beautiful, but the eyes were as black as ink, without any iris pupils. Looking at Jianglin, who was full of fear, he suddenly laughed and said, "Do. Bai Shilinpo, Bai Shilinpo." Everyone was stunned for a long time. How could it even speak in a foreign language? Before it finished speaking, Wei Dongliu had pointed his hand, and the 10,000 ghosts' evil sword shot out directly, piercing the chest of the fake Jiang witch. The fake Jiang witch spat out a mouthful of black blood, then laughed miserably, pointing at Wei Dongliu and saying, "At this time, you'll see that there is no form in yourself. Only emptiness exists, and even the 10 directions are all empty." After saying that, a green flame suddenly rose from its feet, quickly surrounded its body, and soon burned out. Everyone. Doyagyu. When Yang frowned and said slowly, "What does it mean?" "There seems to be Buddhist principles in it." Amitabha. Gilai touched his bald head, suddenly put his hands together and said, "All the appearances in the world are false. All existences have no entity. Buddhism believes that what we see and hear are actually false and illusory. This is no form and empty purity." Jianglin explained. "So what does this have to do with you?" When Yang asked suspiciously. "It has nothing to do with me." Jianglin was also puzzled. Wei Dongliu didn't care about these, just threw the golden sword away and sank into the mirror. Soon, the mirror surface suddenly opened, revealing the passage behind. Everyone was about to move forward when they suddenly heard Wei Dongliu say, "Wait here, I'll deal with it and come back to you." Everyone hesitated to speak. They hesitated because the last level might be ahead. What if this Demon King cleared the way and took everything inside without leaving any soup for everyone? They hesitated because even if Demon King Wei really wanted to do that, what could they do? Can they beat him? Instead of calculating against a cultivator who they definitely couldn't beat, it's better to bet that he wouldn't be so low class that he would treat his words as farts. Demon King Wei didn't care what they thought, he just held the 10,000 Ghosts evil sword in his hand and walked towards the front passage. As he took steps, the demonic energy infused into the sword. When he disappeared from everyone's sight and walked into the innermost room, they saw that the 10,000 Ghosts evil sword had completely faded its original dull appearance, revealing an extremely evil dark purple sword body. The room was unexpectedly large, with an altar in the center and eternal lamps around it to provide light. In the center of the altar, there was an irregularly shaped lens. If it wasn't a fragment of the Kunlun mirror, then what else could it be? However, next to the altar stood a faceless man. He turned his head to look at Wei Dongliu, and his smooth face suddenly grew facial features. It was a familiar face. Wei Dongliu finally remembered that although he hadn't seen that face for a long time, he had actually seen it countless times. That was Chen Yonzu's face, his original appearance. "Do you still remember who you are?" Chen Yonzu asked faintly. "Why not?" Wei Dongliu sneered, "I'm not amnesiac yet. If you wear a mask for a long time, you can't take it off." Chen Yonzu said meaningfully. "Don't you want to fight me?" Wei Dongliu said impatiently. "No strength left." Chen Yonzu shook his head. Since entering here, she has been suppressing the power of the fragments. At the 4th level, the fragments could not even mobilize half of their spiritual power. In the final analysis, fakes are fakes after all. Wei Dongliu said contemptuously, stepping forward. "Although I am a fake, I'm also a reflection of your heart by the fragments, projected by the art of mirror flowers and water moons." Chen Yonzu did not try to escape, but said lightly, "You must have already noticed that the tenderness between you and the mirror is just a disguise for their mutual use. I have never had any tenderness with the broken mirror." Wei Dongliu did not stop at all, and walked directly to the side of the altar, reaching out to take the mirror fragments. "This does not prevent me from helping it collect the fragments." Remember, as Wei Dongliu's hand touched the fragments, Chen Yonzu's outline immediately began to blur, and his voice became intermittent. "Never completely believe in that mirror." As the voice ended, the Kunlun mirror fragments had been absorbed by Wei Dongliu, rushed into the sea of consciousness and were completed by a Jing. "It's finally over." Kunlun Jing's voice was obviously relieved, and after a moment he shouted in surprise, "I didn't expect it to be so difficult to suppress it. It's because it contains so much spiritual power. You're useless." Wei Dongliu said contemptuously. "What are you doing?" Kunlun Jing complained, "If I hadn't suppressed it from the beginning to the end, how could you have passed the last 3 levels so easily?" Wei Dongliu thought carefully and found that the Demon Buddha and the Two-Faced Ghost both used Taoist magic, but Xiaolong and Yu did not use Taoist magic, but only relied on her physical body to attack. When it came to Paikyu and Chen Yuanzu, they simply didn't attack, so it was our Jing's credit. Chapter 263. Second Grade Golden Pill, achieved ahead of time. "Why are your fragments in this Jinglu Palace?" Wei Dongliu asked calmly. "Of course it's to borrow its spatial power, otherwise how can such a large independent cave be opened up?" Kunlun Mirror replied, and clicked his tongue a few times, "But you didn't fall for it, not bad. Who would be fooled by that kind of low-level devised rhetoric?" Wei Dongliu sneered. "Oh?" Kunlun Mirror was somewhat moved. "Yuanzu, although you always looked like a jerk with no bottom line, you finally lived up to my trust at the critical moment." "Trust? It's just a means for mediocre people to keep each other warm." Wei Dongliu laughed unruly. "The real strong man is never afraid of betrayal, because he ascended the throne of the sky by relying on his own strength, not anyone's help!" "I take back what I said before, sorry." Kunlun Mirror said speechlessly. After confronting Kunlun Mirror, Wei Dongliu silently operated the skills and transformed all the magic essence into Taoist true essence again. Then, he looked at the pool at the end of the hall. There was water in the pond, about 4 fingers high, in which there were 12 ears of jiahe, shining with golden light. There were also red grass of equal height, blood-colored and extremely luxuriant. There were 2 jiahe plants and 4 red grass plants. Excluding the one for Kalin, there was just 1 plant for each of the 5 people. But how to divide them? Wei Dongliu had a blank expression on his face. He used Luo Yan's knowledge of spiritual herbs to take out a colored glass vessel, because some spiritual herbs melt when they see soil, or die when they see gold, or turn into jade, so stone, jade or gold and iron vessels cannot be used. Picked 6 spiritual herbs and put them in it. He turned around and went out, back to the inner room outside. Under the expectant and uneasy eyes of everyone, Wei Dongliu took out the colored glass vessel, opened it, and put it on the ground. How to divide it? When everyone saw that there were 6 spiritual herbs in it, they first breathed a sigh of relief, and then saw that there were only 4 red grass plants, and they couldn't help but get nervous. This, Jiangling tried to smooth things over, saying with a smile, "Actually, you don't have to have the vermilion grass, do you? Since Jiehi and vermilion grass are planted in the same pond, they are probably rare spiritual herbs of the same grade. Perhaps there are elders in the sect willing to buy them. It's great that the elders of the heavenly demon sect are willing to buy Jiehi." Wen Yang said seriously. "Why don't you ask the elders of the ghost sect?" Which Jiang immediately counterattacked. Everyone was embarrassed and speechless. Indeed, since Jiehi was favored by Kalin, it must be a treasure of the same level as vermilion grass. However, what treasure can be compared with the cultivation of a mansion of 70 years? Everyone couldn't beat Wei Dongliu, which meant that only 4 people could compete for 3 vermilion grasses. Under normal circumstances, the moment they saw the pond, everyone would definitely leave the team and rush over. Who could get it depended on their own ability. However, Wei Dongliu's combat power was too exaggerated, and he crushed all of them, who were elites of the same level, so that no one dared to take action now, and they could only look at each other and stare. "I want Jiehi," Long Xiaoqi suddenly said. Her initiative to step forward was unexpected, but it was expected after careful consideration. Kalin was willing to take the initiative to ask for Jiehi, which meant that this thing might be useful to the monsters. As for what Long Xiaoqi's true body was, everyone had already guessed it from the corresponding mirror monster, especially from the other party's unreasonable strong body. If it were in ancient times, everyone would have fought each other long ago if they found out that their teammates were monsters. However, the dispute between humans and monsters is not popular nowadays. With a large number of monsters located in the Donghuan monster realm and never set foot in the human world, there is no much racial hatred between humans and monsters. In addition, Wen Yang, Gilai and others had something to hide, so they pretended to know nothing and forced a smile. It's great that Doist Long is willing to give up his share of Zhucao. Doist Long is upright and noble, and we are grateful. Long Xiaoqi waved his hand, with no expression on his face. After the distribution was decided, everyone was eager to take their own share. Except for Long Xiaoqi, who carefully put away Jiehi, the others put it in a bowl, mixed it with gold and jade, and immediately turned it into golden juice and jade liquid, and then drank it all. Soon, the medicinal power rose in the purple mansion. Wen Yang, Gilai and Jiangling all felt that their lower abdomens were burning, and the purple mansion was approaching perfection at a very fast speed. They hurriedly sat down cross-legged on the ground to refine the medicinal power. Only Wei Dongliu felt nothing after drinking it, because he had already cultivated the Jade Mansion. If King Ping's sword hadn't told him that there were still very tiny flaws on the inner wall of the Jade Mansion that were being repaired, he would really doubt whether he had drunk fake medicine. Long Xiaoqi looked over with a curious look in his eyes, as if asking, "Aren't you in a hurry to refine the medicinal power?" Wei Dongliu pretended not to notice it, but just stood there with his arms folded, and then the reminder of the increase in synchronization value sounded in his mind again. Time passed by minute, and the 3 of them were still concentrating on refining the medicinal power. Long Xiaoqi looked around boredly and yawned. Wei Dongliu silently calculated the remaining lifespan and the expected cultivation level in his mind. As a cultivator, lifespan management is a compulsory course. In addition, his own situation is special. Using the Kunlun mirror for multi-line parallel practice makes this more complicated, so he needs to take inventory and calculate frequently to facilitate future planning and management. This body of mine entered Kunlun at the age of 20, and then began to practice Taoism in multi-line parallel practice. 7 years later, 3-line parallel practice, actually 20 years have passed, the body is 40 years old. I completed the marrow washing in the blood pool of the locking demon tower and officially began to transform the palace. Then I accelerated 30 years through the cloud sea and air cocoon, becoming 70 years old. 3 years later, 3-line parallel practice, actually 10 years have passed, the body is 80 years old, that is, now, there are still 120 years of lifespan left. 10 years are reserved just in case, that is to say, through the accumulation of Taoism, I can accumulate a maximum of 120 years of cultivation. I have practiced at the Transformation Palace level for 10 years, and there are still 110 years to practice. However, in fact, it is impossible to use every day of the remaining life to cultivate. After all, in life, there'll always be some strange emergencies that will delay that progress of cultivation. Therefore, when he is 190 years old, the cultivation level of daily cultivation should be less than 120 years, but it can be supplemented from the reserved 10 years of life, so let's count it as 120 for the time being. Then calculate the cultivation level gained from the adventure. The Golden Mercury Elixir is equivalent to 60 years of cultivation, 30 years of Cloudseed Cocoon, 70 years of Enlightenment in Kumlantian Menhall, 50 years of Kuyuan Spiritual Energy, and then 70 years of this Golden Juice and Jade Liquid. A total of 280 years. Add the previous 120 years of daily cultivation, and it is exactly 400 years of Watu cultivation. In other words, if he does not seek adventures from now on, and concentrates on cultivation in the sect, after 190 years old, when his life is almost over, he will form a pill, which is almost enough to reach the threshold of the second-grade Golden Elixir. As for the first-grade Golden Elixir, it is said that the threshold is 800 years, and an additional 400 years are needed. This number is so abnormal that he dare not aim too high, and will slowly look for other adventures later. If it doesn't take 800 years in the end, the second-grade Golden Elixir will only be the second grade. If this falls into the years of anyone present, I'm afraid everyone will be so angry that they will bleed. What is the concept of the second-grade Golden Elixir? Even the Kumlantai King sect, which pays the most attention to the realm of cultivation, has only produced one second-grade Golden Elixir since its establishment 10,000 years ago, and that is the current headmaster Ziwei. As for the entire world of cultivation, there are basically no more than 5 fingers. This thing is obviously not something that can be piled up with resources, but it must have outstanding talent, super compact power and destiny at the same time, none of which can be missing. Of course, in the eyes of Wei Donliu or Qiu Chang Tian, since my master is a second-grade Golden Elixir, I naturally cannot fall behind my master. That is another matter. Chapter 264 Return in Long-Term Cooperation. A few days later, the three of them finally finished refining the medicinal power and got up one after another. Jianglin was the last one to finish refining. When he checked his Qi again, he found that the Purple Palace had been mostly restored, and the outline of the Jade Palace was faintly visible. As mentioned before, a cultivator with first-class qualifications often enters the Tao at the age of 10, has a full Qi at the age of 50, and has completed the marrow cleansing at the age of 60. By the age of 190, he has about 130 years of cultivation in the Wi Palace. In other words, if you want to form a third-grade Golden Elixir, you need to supplement your skills from the outside world for at least 70 years. As for the source of skills, people often call it the Purple Palace Secret Realm or Purple Palace Spiritual Medicine. The Purple Palace Secret Realm is either under the control of a famous sect, such as Kumlantian Menhall, or it is strictly kept secret, such as the 5 Kuyuan Cave. The Purple Palace Spiritual Medicine is relatively better, such as the most popular Jin Mercury Dam, and the annual output of Shushan is very stable. Although there is not enough for the internal disciples every year, some of it often flows to the outside world, and no one knows why. The Golden Juice Jade Liquid that everyone took this time is a typical Purple Palace spiritual medicine. 70 years of Watu power is the best among all the known Purple Palace elixirs. Zhukayo Jiehe is also a rare elixir that only exists in the classics. It is at least 100,000 years old. How can it not be rare? In short, the adventure of everyone this time is a rare one no matter from which aspect. The news came from Yulong Shankalin. The smooth clearance depends on Wei Dongliu. How can ordinary cultivators have such opportunities? Thinking of this, Jiang Monu suddenly found that Wen Yang and Gilai had already gotten up and were whispering near the corner. As for Wei Dongliu and Long Xiaoqi, they were nowhere to be seen. Maybe they were tired of waiting these days and went out to relax. She was thinking silently, and suddenly she saw En Yang waving at her. "What are you doing?" Jianglin walked over suspiciously. "This time we owe you a big favor." As soon as she walked to the two of them, she saw Gilai said seriously. "TSK." Jiang Monu immediately sneered disdainfully. "Favor? What favors can we have for people in the 6 paths? Don't think I don't know what you're up to. Well, it's like this. When Yang saw her sneer and immediately knew that the rhetoric couldn't be hidden from her, so he could only tell the truth. Fellow Daoist Jiang, we really want to repay fellow Daoist Wei's favor. If it weren't for him this time, how could we have the chance to win the top grade golden elixir? As I said before, the Purple Mansion spiritual medicine is too rare. Even the top disciples of the three pure ones of the Orthodox sect cannot guarantee that they will be able to get the Purple Mansion spiritual medicine in the 130 years of cultivating the Dao and transforming the palace. First of all, it depends on whether the sect has it, and secondly, whether you deserve it. Even Shushan, which can stably produce the golden mercury pill, can only produce about 7 or 8 spoons every 100 years, but there are already more than 20 disciples directly taught by the masters of the various peaks, and they can only get it by competing with each other. It is true that when Yang and Gilai said that they received a great favor, but so what? He talks about looking for an opportunity to repay me. It's nothing more than seeing that my Lord Wei is so powerful and wanting to get close to him so he can use him in the future. Seeing Jiang Lin's playful expression, Gilai couldn't help but say, fellow Daoist Jiang, don't be blinded by beauty. If it were you, wouldn't you make friends with such a strong teammate like fellow Daoist Wei? What friends? Jiang Lin said contemptuously, Dong Liu and I have known each other for a long time, and there is no need to make friends deliberately. His two disciples even call me Senior Jiang. When Yang laughed awkwardly a few times, and then advised, although fellow Daoist Wei has a high level of cultivation, it is a pity that he is a cultivator of the Mortal Dao. Everyone knows that the Mortal Dao is a mess. The secrets of the inheritance of the ancient Jiao have been almost lost. We have a large number of ancient classics passed down from generation to generation in our sect, and many of them have fragments that mention several secret realms, but our realm is low now, and our strength is too weak to explore. Fellow Daoist Wei should be able to explore, but he suffers from a lack of information and does not know the location of many ancient secret realms. If everyone unites like this, isn't it a win-win situation? Jiang Lin was right. After all, 2 birds in the bush are worth a bird in the hand. In the past, when we found the whereabouts of a secret realm, we had to worry about whether we were capable of exploring it, so we had to carefully test it. It took a long time to go back and forth. Whether we could get the benefits in the end was another matter. The key was that sometimes we underestimated the dangers of the secret realm and easily lost our lives. Now that we had the powerful Wei Lao thief, the 4 of us will go to check the classics in the sect to find the whereabouts of the secret realm. If we find it, we will take Wei Lao Mo to fight it, which is equivalent to a Jindan level combat force accompanying us throughout the process. Thinking of this, Jiang Monu's heart was pounding. Ahem. She coughed and frowned. Why didn't you say it earlier? Fellow Daoist Wei is not the kind of person who is difficult to talk to. I will go and talk to him later. When Yang and Gilai heard her say this, even though they were well informed, they couldn't help but vomit in their hearts. Who was the person who just pretended to protect her husband and was anxious to drive us away? I'm afraid he has long ceased to be a human being. After a few hours, Wei Dongliu and Long Xiaoqi also came back from outside. While the 3 of them were refining the medicinal power, they went around the remaining rooms of the Jinni Palace. Except for some long-gone classics, nothing was found. Long Xiaoqi was very interested in these classics and flicked through them one by one. Wei Dongliu was also somewhat interested, but in order to maintain his mysterious personality, he could only pretend to be completely uninterested and let the Kunlun mirror secretly record it for him. After everyone reunited again, they prepared to set off for the return voyage. Calculating the time, the miasma dissipation period was almost over. Leaving the palace, crossing the Jinni Lake, and returning to reality, on the way out of Alao Mountain, Jiang Lin smiled and proposed long-term cooperation. Simply put, everyone uses the information of their own sects to find the secret realm left over from ancient times, and then team up with Wei Dongliu to explore. Whether it is Jiang Lin, Wen Yang, Gilai or Long Xiaoqi, they are almost all elite disciples in the sect, with complete master-disciple relationship and sufficient status, which is fundamentally different from mortal cultivators like Wei Dongliu, so they can provide him with the information and intelligence he lacks the most. Wei Dongliu was responsible for the most important combat power, and the final share of the harvest is calculated according to his contribution. Since he is the most combat capable in the team, the more difficult and dangerous the secret realm is, the more benefits he can get. Although it sounds like he eats meat and others drink soup, but the 4 people work together at the same time, and the number of explorations is accumulated, even drinking soup can be full. If it is replaced by other Jindan cultivators in the sect for help, how can there be such a good deal? Basically, the other party swallows the meat and soup together. After all, they also have junior brothers and sisters in the foundation building realm. Wei Dongliu listened silently and suddenly felt something was wrong. This, their logic, isn't it the thinking of the outer disciples of Kunlun sect who ask for help from the eldest brother Qiu Chang Tian? It's exactly the same. To put it bluntly, the upper echelons of the cultivation world exploit the lower echelons too much. Only people like me who need to brush up the synchronization value. No, it should be said that it is because of the bright, majestic, upright and generous character, and the willingness to make fair, reasonable and inclusive concessions, that we can gain the trust of so many fellow disciples and outer disciples. Of course, the most important thing is Wei Dongliu's character, who is responsible for finding intelligence about the hell. Establishing a sect and training disciples to help collect information is an effective way. Coming forward in person, making friends from all walks of life, and quietly finding out the secrets is another feasible way. Yeah. After figuring out the key points, Wei Dongliu nodded and agreed. Chapter 265 I don't believe she can kill me. After a long journey, everyone finally arrived at the Donghuan Palace again. The palace square was deserted at this time. Except for Cunning lazily lying in the corner, there were no other 5 cultivators. It was completely opposite to the lively scene when they came. After saying goodbye to everyone, Wei Dongliu came to Cunning alone, took out the golden sword and the box containing Jiehi, and opened them. Cunning lazily opened his mouth, sucked the golden sword and Jiehi into his stomach, and showed a satisfied look. Excuse me, senior, why is there no one in this square? Wei Dongliu took the opportunity to talk. Almost dead. Cunning replied lazily. Dead? Wei Dongliu asked in astonishment. Didn't they say that the 5 disciples ambushed Shushan together? They were defeated. Wait, senior sister and Ling Yunpo are also in it, so it's okay. Hey, that's not right. This trip to the 10,000 mountains was participated by Jinnan and even Yuning cultivators. Even if senior sister and Ling Yunpo were as strong as they were, they would not be able to defeat so many high-level cultivators from the 5 paths of the demon sect. Otherwise, what would be the meaning of the 5 paths' existence? They would be directly exterminated by the 3 purities of the orthodox sect. Humph. Cunning sneered, using low-level disciples as bait. These descendants of Jiri Zhao were going backwards as they grow older. Before leaving, the fox hinted and reminded you like this, don't you understand? If you don't accept my commission and insist on going north, you'll die like them. After saying that, it closed its eyes, rested its chin on the middle of its forelimbs, and said nothing. Just a few words, but Wei Dongliu's heart skipped a beat. What, is there a conspiracy this time? He hurried back to the East Empire Palace, and near the guest room where he stayed last time, he saw En Yang and others who had received the news from his fellow disciples, and had gathered outside his room. Denoyaway. Seeing that he finally returned, Jiang Monu hurried over and said hurriedly, this trip to the 10,000 mountains is a trap. Using low-level disciples as bait. Wei Dongliu said slowly. You know. Everyone was slightly stunned when they heard this. The synchronization value began to soar. What a trick. Gilai was the first to break the silence, and couldn't help but sigh. First, pretend that the 5 tros united to ambush Shushan at the 10,000 mountains, and induce Shushan to ask for help from Kunlun and Penglai. Then organize all the high-level cultivators and pretend to be transferred to the expedition to the East Empire Realm Gate, but actually detour through the South China Sea and the East China Sea, taking a big roundabout route, and forcefully attacking Penglai King Temple. Our 5 tros have completely revived their reputation this time. Wei Dongliu. So he is a master of military tactics, right? He has already understood at this time. The area north of the East Empire Palace was originally estimated to be the main battlefield of the 5 tros of the demon cult and Shushan, and the 5 tros, where the low-level or high-level cultivators, have an absolute advantage. Since Shushan knew about this in advance, it would not sit still and wait for death. Long before the southern expedition to the 10,000 mountains, when Ling Yun broke the line, senior brother Lin Yulanzhen mentioned that Shushan was still hesitating whether to ask for help from the other 2 sects. Now it seems that they have finally made up their minds to ask for help, but unexpectedly they fell into a trick here. The 5 Troyists abandoned their low-level disciples as bait to die, but took away all the elite high-level monks, and secretly went to the South China Sea and the East China Sea to attack Penglai King Temple in the name of the Southern Expedition to the East Empire Realm Gate. How is the performance over there? Wei Dongliu asked slowly. The 5 Tros united, even the sword barbarians of Shushan were no match for them. How could those nerds of Yu King Temple be able to defeat them? which Jing sneered. Even the protective formation of the sect was broken, and the high-level cultivators fled with the low-level disciples, with heavy casualties. If it weren't for Kunlun's quick assistance, the Yu King Temple would have been expelled from the sect. Even so, Wen Yang added, it is said that this expedition team also looted countless magic tools, flying swords, and spiritual medicines from Penglai, which can be said to have made a lot of money. At this point, everyone's expression was a little depressed and unwilling. The depression was because they lamented that they were not strong enough and could not join the expedition team to besiege Penglai to make a fortune. But the unwillingness was because some of their fellow disciples who knew them were also privately called to the expedition team because of nepotism, such as the same clan teacher, and they almost got all kinds of benefits. On the other hand, although they were also elite disciples in the sect, they did not have a strong enough backing background, so they were thrown to the Shouwan Mountains as bait. If Wei Dongliu had not been favored by Lord Kalin and cleverly avoided death, he would have died on the battlefield in the north. Wei Dongliu was speechless for a moment, and only heard Kunlun Mirror suddenly say, "Guanzu, don't ask any more questions." "What's wrong?" Wei Dongliu frowned and asked. He still wanted to ask about the Tiangong workshop of Yu King Temple. All the news you hear will become established facts that have already happened in history. Kunlun Mirror reminded, in order to ensure that there is room for change in the future, you should stop here. Yeah. Wei Dongliu also understood immediately. Schrodinger's cat, observation is collapse. It is better to keep it mysterious. Speaking of this, Jiang Lin suddenly said, "Doorway, do you still remember my senior sister Aizkinzi? I heard that she was selected to join the expedition team before she left, and it seems that she got a powerful magic weapon this time. Doorway and Aizkinzi have a grudge." Wen Yang also said in surprise, "I heard that this person has an extremely violent temper and holds grudges. If he really got some powerful magic weapon this time, Doa should be careful next time." Alas. Jiang Lin also sighed. "I thought that the senior sister would ambush everyone in the 10,000 mountains this time, and she could just join forces with Wei Laoze and others to fight back, but unexpectedly, such a change occurred. Everyone accepted the guidance of Kalin and changed the route to the south, and the senior sister temporarily joined the expedition team. While the two sides cleverly staggered, they also got great benefits. Senior Sister Ada got the powerful magic weapon of Yu King Temple. Although it is definitely not as good as her 70 years of Purple Mansion cultivation, her combat effectiveness is probably going to be a leap forward. Given her personality, she will definitely take the opportunity to seek revenge after returning. I don't know if Wei Lao Thief can beat him. If Wei Lao Thief is not her opponent, then I'm dead. Otherwise, run away in advance." For some reason, when thinking of Wei Lao Thief, Jiang Monu suddenly thought of Wei Mojun. With Wei Mojun's unfathomable strength, it seems impossible for him to be defeated by the eldest sister. Just imagining this possibility is outrageous. Well, no, I have to take the opportunity to pull more people back. Thinking of this, she smiled and said to everyone, "The trip to Shouwan Mountain is over. Do you want to go to Shipping Mountain for a gathering? I heard that Wei Doi's sect is located near the Bian Palace." Wen Yang was also a little moved. "I would like to visit your sect, but I don't know if it is convenient." "Of course it's okay," Wei Dongliu said lightly. Looking at Gilai and Longxiaki again, there was no objection either. Everyone had already made up their minds to hug Wei Mojun's thighs, and of course they would have to get to know each other more in the future. Seeing that things were going so smoothly, Jiang Lin was relieved. "Very good. With the help of Wei Mojun and the other three, even if we face a Jindan cultivator, we may not be powerless. I don't believe that the senior sister can kill me." Chapter 266. Fellow Daoist Wei and I from the same hometown. Everyone quickly set off on their swords, rushing from southern Xinjiang to the southern foot of Tiehang Mountain. Along the way, Wei Dongliu once again carefully calculated. Now this character's intelligence network is mainly divided into two lines, the upper and lower lines. The lower line is the two disciples Gyojin and Banjun. After they grow up slowly, they will be allowed to travel around and search for information about the hell. The advantage of this line is that the apprentices are easy to use, and the disadvantage is that the apprentices need time to cultivate. After ordinary monks enter the cultivation, they can enter the waffle level in about 50 years. With the qualifications of these two disciples, Wei Dongliu feels that it may be later. About 70 or 80 years, don't rush. The upper line is Wei Dongliu himself, through Jiang Lin, Wen Yang, Gilai, Longxiaki, 4 people, respectively, from the Tianmo Do, Yingli Do, Shirado and Donghuan Do to inquire about information. The advantage is that the cycle is short, and Wei Dongliu himself is a waffle level monk at the beginning. The disadvantage is that he needs to maintain his character and can't ask questions casually. Of course, as a qualified traitor spy, he would not be so narrow-minded as to only follow one line. I want them all. Apart from the situation on Wei Dongliu's side, the more worrying thing is Luo Yan's side. According to the current timeline of progress, Wei Dongliu's progress is a few days ahead of Luo Yan. In other words, as long as you read the file and jump to Luo Yan's side, you will soon encounter the event of 100,000 gods and demons attacking Penglai. According to Jianglin and others, Penglai King Temple has been breached, and even the mountain protection formation is gone, which is simply a big defeat. However, there is no detailed mention of the specific situation of Tiangong Fang. According to Wei Jin, he can't take the initiative to ask, otherwise what if someone says Tiangong Fang is all wiped out or a person named Luo Yan died miserably? Therefore, although he was thinking about it, he did not ask directly. After all, Jianglin and others were not in the expedition team, but only heard some second-hand information from hearsay, so they didn't talk much about this topic, but quickly moved on to other aspects. I heard that this time on the northern battlefield, since there were no high-level cultivators to show up, the Shushan side has gone crazy with killing. Wen Yang said casually, the one who killed the most crazily was the grass-mowing sword immortal. What is the grass-mowing sword immortal and Zesu? Jianglin asked curiously. I heard that person is also a killer inside Shushan. I'm afraid that more of her fellow disciples have died at her hands than cultivators from rival sects. After all, Shushan is the three pure ones, and the rules are different from ours. Wen Yang sneered contemptuously, no matter how strong you are, it's useless without enough connections. That's why the grass-mowing sword immortal didn't get to participate in the southern expedition in previous years. I just don't know why she was allowed to come this time. The three pure ones is a derogatory term for the three pure ones of the Orthodox Church, satirizing the elite disciples at cunning, Shushan and Penglai, who were mostly occupied by immortal cultivation families and have actually begun to become aristocratic, and Zisu's father is the Seven Killers Master Sujian of King Luo Peak. Gilai also added, he is also a killer, and it is said that he is the direct disciple of the Shushan Grand Elder Chanmei Immortal. Later, Sujian was ambushed and seriously injured by several elders of my sect. After returning to the sect, he began to close the gate of life and death. King Luo Peak has never recovered since then. That's strange. Jianglin smiled with narrowed eyes. The Taoist lineage of the direct disciple has declined, so why doesn't the Grand Elder care? Who knows? Wen Yang waved his hand indifferently. It's probably those intrigues. Jianglin raised his eyebrows, obviously not believing it. No matter how much intrigue there is, it won't affect the Grand Elder. His status, to put it bluntly, is that if he sneezes, all the peaks of Shushan will tremble. The grass-cutting sword immortal killed fellow disciples indiscriminately, and he was not valued in the sect. It is obvious that it is because this ancestor didn't care. What do you think, fellow Taoist Wei? She tilted her head with a sweet smile and asked Wei Dongliu again. Maybe it's a dispute over the root. Wei Dongliu said casually. A dispute over the root? Jiangmonu blinked. Hey, I know that. Gilai suddenly interrupted and said, take Ashuradu as an example. There are people who specialize in fighting magic and those who concentrate on Buddhism. Both sides don't like each other. Then is fellow Taoist Gi from the fighting magic department or the Buddhism department? Jiangmonu asked with a smile. Of course I am from the fighting magic department. Gilai said without thinking. The atmosphere suddenly became quiet. Everyone suddenly remembered that in the Jin Palace, Gilai's reflection in the mirror had an angry face, but a compassionate heart. In other words, on the surface, he was bloodthirsty and fighting, but in fact he was eager to learn Buddhism. Ahem. Gilai also realized that something was wrong and explained, my father is a high monk in the temple. He is proficient in the theory of Tantric Buddhism and even obtained the degree of Arambagsh. Arambagsh? Jianglin asked curiously. The title among monks can only be obtained after long-term hard study of Buddhism in the Tantric Academy. Gilai sighed, he taught me many scriptures since I was a child, and I was supposed to inherit his mantle. But when I was 14, he failed in a battle with his enemy and died. His soul was scattered and he didn't even have the chance to reincarnate. From that day on, I knew that no matter how deeply you learned Buddhism, what was the use? The old foreign monk sighed, raised one hand, and said, Amitabha, in the vicissitudes of life, you can't defeat your enemy in a battle. Just because you have a deep foundation in Buddhism, will the Buddha send the Mingwang to save you? To argue, there is a Buddhist nature in what you said. Wen Yang clapped his hands and smiled. As long as you are good at fighting, what's the harm if you don't understand Buddhism? Gilai waved his hand listlessly, indicating that he didn't want to say more. Fellow Daoist Gyu is actually from a high-ranking monk's family. Jiangmonu also said with a smile, I also know Shaoqi. He was a herder in southern Xinjiang before he entered Taoism. What about fellow Daoist Wen? He is just an ordinary wealthy family. Wen Yang said briefly. The so-called wealthy family is probably a landlord. Wei Dongliu was watching coldly, and saw that Jiangmonu turned the topic around to herself. Fellow Daoist Wei was a casual cultivator before joining the mortal life duo. I think he should not be from a large family of immortal cultivators. But if you look at his conversation and temperament, he is not from a small family, right? I am from overseas. Wei Dongliu said mysteriously. Overseas? Now everyone was surprised. South China Sea or East China Sea? The Sea of Time? Do you believe that I have traveled through time? Wei Dongliu said perfunctorily. The South China Sea and the East China Sea are connected, but I don't know the exact location. I came to Shenzhou by accident. I see. Seeing that he was unwilling to mention it more, everyone tactfully stopped asking. Only to hear Wen Yang laughing again. After asking for a long time, Brother Jing hasn't said it yet. What about me? Jianglin smiled with curved eyebrows and eyes. My parents are fishermen overseas. Our home is in Shayu Township, Pengu Island. It was just that not long after I was born, I was taken in by my master as a disciple. She suddenly thought of something, clapped her hands and laughed. In this way, Brother Wei and I are also from overseas. Does this count as being from the same hometown? Everyone was speechless when they heard this. So, going overseas together means being from the same hometown, right? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 267 Mishi's Whip. Shipping Mountain is ahead. Jianglin suddenly said. Since they planned to form a long-term team later, they had a good relationship with each other and improved their understanding of each other's backgrounds. Wei Dongliu was probably the only one who was perfunctory throughout the whole process. Because the more vague he was, the higher the synchronization value would be. Everyone didn't care. It's okay if we don't know Wei Mojin, as long as Wei Mojin knows us. Familiarity is the basis of trust. Seeing that the Behind Palace was below, Jianglin suddenly had a certain dangerous intuition. She hurriedly pulled the flying sword to stop and exclaimed, "Be careful!" Before she finished speaking, she heard a sudden sound of breaking wind and rushed behind her in an instant. In a hurry, she could only throw a divine demon with a form backwards and screamed, "Doorway, save me!" As soon as the divine demon came out of the robe sleeve, it was hit on the head by the magic weapon directly, and it exploded directly like an egg hitting a stone, with white and black splashing everywhere. At this time, everyone saw clearly that the magic weapon was actually a steel whip, spinning in the air. The god-beating whip. Jianglin and others felt as if they had fallen into an icy cave. This thing turned out to be the legendary god-beating whip. How could it be possible? How could the elders of the sect get this 11th level magic weapon and give it to Aizhenzi? Only Wei Dongliu could see it clearly. With his rich experience in refining weapons, he immediately determined that it was not the god-beating whip, but a replica of the god-beating whip. Thinking of this, he controlled his expression and felt as if he had fallen into a nice warehouse. Shouldn't the god-beating whip be with Mishi? Could it be? Aizhenzi flew up from below on a flying sword, staring straight at Wei Dongliu, and said viciously, "What is your relationship with that little bitch? Why did you protect her last time? Where did Oist friend get this magic weapon?" Wei Dongliu asked instead of answering, his tone cold. "Of course, they came here to kill people and steal treasures." Aizhenzi glanced around, passing Wen Yang, Gilai and Long Xiaoqi, and finally fell on Jianglin, and said grimly, "You found quite a few people, junior sister." "Why is this, senior sister?" Jianglin acted pitiful and said with tears in her eyes, "We have met again after a long time. Why do you want to take my life without saying a word? If other senior sisters knew about it, they would think that senior sister was planning to clean up the sect." "Shut up." Aizhenzi was immediately furious. The last time she taught junior sister a lesson, Wei Dongliu intervened and beat her so hard that she almost fled. She had been holding a grudge for a long time. It was a good opportunity to take advantage of this opportunity to obtain the 10th level magic weapon to avenge the previous shame. Junior sister's words made some sense. If she killed her directly, it would inevitably cause weight among other junior sisters. It would be better to subdue and trap her first, then drag her in front of the other sisters and punish her for offending the sisters. In this way, even if the master comes out of retreat and knows about this, he will not care too much. As for Wei Dongliu, she had already found out clearly that he was just a casual cultivator who joined the mortal life through and had no background at all. As for his evil flying sword, it probably just happened to restrain the heavenly demon. This time with the help of the God Strike Whip, he will definitely be beaten to the point where his forehead bursts and his soul flies away. She pinched the dough formula again and said sternly, "I'm Aizinzi of the heavenly demon dough. This time I'm only here to capture Jiangling and take the life of that dog thief named Wei. The rest of the idle people should evacuate quickly, otherwise I will beat you too." In her opinion, the power of the God Strike Whip has just been revealed. Even if these demon cultivators have a close relationship with the little sister, they should think carefully of this time. But he only heard Wen Yang coldly say, "Aizinzi, you're blinded by lard, don't you recognize me?" So it was Dapangun of Yangido. Aizinzi looked again and recognized the appearance of this person, male and female, very recognizable, and laughed. "Why, Dapangun Wen also wants to interfere in the family affairs of Tianmodo?" Gilai saw that she didn't recognize him, and he was furious. He approached Wei Dongliu and asked, "Wei, what should we do next? Kill him or not?" Wei Dongliu narrowed his eyes and said, "Take him down first." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly rushed forward with his sword. Aizinzi had been on guard against his sudden attack, and quickly waved his sleeves, releasing more than a dozen gods and demons to block his way from all directions. Wen Yang quickly pulled away, and recited grudge curse binding kill in his mouth, shooting out countless grey and white ghosts, and pounced on Aizinzi fiercely. She had just commanded a formless demon to block the ghost attacks, when she saw Gilai circling from the left and shooting a blood-colored flying sword at her. Long Xiaoqi rushed over from the right, as if he was going to fight her in close combat. Aizinzi was ruthless, so she urged the divine whip on her head and hit Wei Dongliu, who was temporarily restrained by the formless demon in front of her. "Kill the chicken to scare the monkey first, so that these blind people will know how powerful it is." Wei Dongliu casually manipulated the 10,000 ghosts' evil sword to kill the formless demons approaching him one by one. Suddenly, he saw the divine whip spinning in the air fallen quickly. He sneered in his heart, and a little golden light immediately emerged from his robe. It was the gold and silkworm hue that vibrated its wings and rushed to meet it. There was a loud noise like the collision of metal and iron. The 100 poisons gold and silkworm hue and the God Strike Whip collided with each other. The latter immediately collapsed and flew out. The former was also hit by the overwhelming force and fell down. It fell for more than 10 feet before it stabilized its body. It was shaking and flying dizzily, but it seemed to be completely unharmed. This 100 poisons gold and silkworm hue was originally famous for its extreme hardness. It was said to be invulnerable to swords and guns, and difficult to be hurt by water and fire. If it was the real God Strike Whip, it might be able to blow up a few of them, but the imitation God Strike Whip was simply impossible. Seeing that the God Strike Whip did not work, Aizinzi frowned slightly, and then saw that it was the 100 poisons gold and silkworm hue, and immediately became frightened. Seeing that Long Xiaoqi was about to rush in front of her, she hurriedly controlled the unbalanced God Strike Whip to rescue, but she saw that Wei Dongliu finally completed the transformation of the magic element and turned into the image of a demon king with red hair and double pupils. He flew in front of the God Strike Whip and directly reached out to grab the steel whip. The divine whip received the master's command and wanted to struggle, but was infused with infinite demonic energy by Wei Dongliu. It immediately lost its spirituality and its luster dimmed, and it completely disobeyed Aizinzi's command. Long Xiaoqi approached and punched. Aizinzi retreated urgently, and with his lips slightly opened, he uttered a strange sound that sounded like crying. The magic sound of heavenly demons. This method is a magic sound illusion that can disturb a person's mind and make him dizzy and unable to stay awake. Especially those physical cultivators who wield fists and feet have low resistance to illusions. If they are hit by this trick, they will immediately become useless and can no longer continue to fight. However, how could she know that this physical cultivator who looks like a girl is actually a demon? Long Xiaoqi also opened her mouth and let out a long roar. The magic sound of heavenly demons was quickly destroyed, and the dragon roar containing the supreme dragon power echoed in all directions. Aizenzi, who was the closest, was stunned on the spot. Gila used the blood-colored flying sword to entangle the gods and demons who wanted to rush back to protect their master. Wei Dongliu took the opportunity to rush in, rushed to Aizenzi, and grabbed her shoulders. Endless demonic energy quickly penetrated and soon sealed her meridians and acupoints. Chapter 268. Escape must be planned in advance. In terms of combat ability, Jiangmonu was no match for Wei Mojun, but in terms of tricks, 10 Wei Mojuns are not enough for Jiangmonu. Soon, the captured Aizenzi revealed all the secrets. The good news is that the divine whip was not obtained by Aizenzi after killing someone, but was captured by a senior from a disciple of Yu-King Temple. The bad news is that the disciple is said to be a master of formations, and is quite young, and is said to have not yet formed a pill. If there is such a thing as an ID card in the world of cultivation, he believes that the other party must have confessed to Luoyan's ID number. After asking about the situation in general, Wei Dongliu decided to read the file. Point 3. Penglai Fairy Island, Yu-King Temple. Character Identity. Luoyan. Mirror Flower Water Moon template is overwritten, and is traveling through time and space. After being teleported to Yu-King Temple, Luoyan has thought about the situation carefully. First of all, we need to find out how much information Penglai has obtained. If I rashly go to the abbot or the master and reveal everything, I won't be able to explain the source of the information. I will most likely be regarded as a spy who has turned from darkness to light. Well, considering that I am really a spy, it would be stupid to do so. I should test it first. Luoyan ran to Elder Shiding and saw the master reading in the study. He was reading the various ancient books on formations that he and Chilili brought back from the Gaiku Palace. Master. Luoyan made up a lie on the spot, saying that he was passing by an island when he went out, and by chance, he happened to hear a passing monk talking about 100,000 gods and demons attacking Penglai. 100,000 gods and demons attack Penglai. Elder Shiding said in surprise, isn't it Shushan? Recently, the demon cult is fighting against Shushan in the 10,000 mountains in southern Xinjiang. How can they have time to attack our Penglai? Is there a possibility? Luoyan certainly couldn't say that he had solid evidence, so he could only pretend to be whimsical, hoping that his master would take it seriously. What if the 10,000 mountains are just a bait? How about attracting the attention of the Orthodox sect to southern Xinjiang, and then secretly transferring troops and attacking Penglai from Aditya? Okay. Elder Shiding said helplessly, if so, it's more than 10,000 miles from southern Xinjiang to Penglai. How can the demon cult guarantee that it will not be discovered along the way? Well, maybe there is some flying magic weapon. Luoyan said embarrassedly, detouring through the South China Sea and the East China Sea can conceal its tracks to the greatest extent. Even if they have a magic weapon that can travel 1,000 miles a day, they should definitely go through the East China Sea. Elder Shiding slapped his thigh and said, there are 36 blessed lands in the East China Sea, south of Penglai. How can the demon cult hide from their sight after entering the East China Sea? Well, if all 36 blessed lands in the East China Sea betrayed, Luoyan was still holding on. Let's not talk about whether they dare to rebel. Elder Shiding said impatiently, even if they rebel, Penglai Fairy Island has the Chidanjiang formation. How can the demon cult's 6 ways plus the 36 blessed lands break through? If there is a traitor, are you a traitor? Elder Shiding said strangely. Puff. Luoyan almost vomited blood when he heard this. Fortunately, his mind turned quickly and he saw that Elder Shiding was not serious, otherwise, how could he still be alive? Elder Shiding frowned and said, this formation was left by the ancestors of the sect, and now it is maintained by the master. No one knows the secret of the formation except our Tiangong workshop. In our Tiangong workshop, you are the only one who has received the true teachings of the formation from the master. If there is a traitor, who else could it be except you? Luoyan showed a look of not knowing whether to laugh or cry. This can't be said anymore, or the master will really get suspicious. Luoyan, Elder Shiding said kindly, it's Lily who is instigating you to find a reason to take her out to play, right? Go and tell Lily that the conflicts and frictions between the demon sect and the orthodox sect have become more and more intense in recent years, and it's really not stable outside. Even if she really wants to go out, she has to wait until your eldest brother has a baby, which will be only about 20 years, understand? Understood. Luoyan said sullenly. There are still 20 years left, and we should be thankful that we can survive the subsequent catastrophe. He said goodbye to the master silently, and then turned and left. Well, think about it carefully, it's normal that I didn't convince the master. Even a wise Hinzi actually didn't know how Penglai's Chidunjiring formation would be broken in the future. As long as there was no evidence of problems with the formation, the Yu King Temple disciples would not have any sense of crisis at all. If asked, they would just say there is a formation. What else can they say? If analyzed carefully, there are two possibilities for the formation to be broken. First, there is a traitor. This is the most reasonable reason. After all, a solid fortress is broken from the inside. However, Master has already said that only he knows the secret of the formation, and even I have not taught it. Even if there is a traitor, how can it be possible to shut down the formation from the inside? Could it be that the traitor is Master? Ahem, how is it possible? If Elder Sheeting is a traitor in the demon sect, I will go directly to him to remind him. Wouldn't it be like a sheep walking into the tiger's mouth? Impossible. Luoyang thought again. The second possibility is that the demon sect has obtained some method to break the formation from the outside. This possibility can only be said to exist, but there is no way to confirm the specifics. After all, Luoyang himself knows nothing about the Chidunjiring formation, let alone how to break it. After thinking about it, Luoyang came to a conclusion. First, according to the news from the future demon cult, the Jade Purity Temple suffered a great defeat this time, and even the mountain protection formation was broken. The high-level monks led the low-level monks to flee everywhere. Considering that there is a fairy guarding the Jade Purity Temple, it means that there must be a fairy on the side of the demon clan expedition, otherwise the demon cult would not be able to achieve success. Secondly, although this possibility is slim, it would be best if we could sneak in and get the fragments of the heaven-fixing stone while the immortals are fighting. If there is no chance, then we will find ways to trick the master, the brothers and sisters, and Miss Lily out in advance. As long as we are not in Penglai, it doesn't matter whether you are besieged by 100,000 Gotten demons or 1 million Gotten demons. It is also very simple to do this. Just trick Miss Lily out and trap her, and then go back for help. The master will definitely be restless if his beloved daughter is missing. No matter how broken the Jade Purity Temple is, as long as Elder Sheeting is not dead, his position in the sect will be unshakable, and he will still have the opportunity to plot for the fragments of the heaven-fixing stone in the future. Finally, there is the help of external aid. Although Elder Sheeting does not believe in himself, he has more than one master. According to the information of the future demon cult, it was Kunlun who came thousands of miles to help and finally solved the siege of Penglai. In other words, if Qiu Changtai persuades the head of Ziwia, would it be more feasible? As long as the people of Tiangongfang are deceived Shinzhou, when Penglai is besieged by the demon cult, Kunlun will immediately send out support, and just coincidentally meet the master and others on the way, and protect them by the way. In this way, the biggest risk is perfectly avoided. After careful consideration, Luoyang got up and went to the Duzhan Pavilion. First, we need to find a secret realm to lure Mishi to explore. Ordinary cultivators who want to seek opportunities in the Wafu first consider looking for them in the classics. The collection of classics in Penglai is vast, more than 10 times that of Kunlun and Shushan combined. If ordinary cultivators come here, I don't know when they will see it. But Luoyang has a talent for hearing thousands of enlightenments, and he can read 10 lines at a glance and understand them instantly. As long as you find the secret scroll containing the clues, you can immediately infer the location of the secret realm from the information between the lines. Chapter 269 Qiangshan Vocational Technical School Yangzhou, Qiansan Mountain. Luoyang walked in the mountains with a scroll in his hand. Although it was winter, the scenery in the mountains was still beautiful, and the streams on the roadside were gurgling and clear. In the Dongzhen section of the Orthodox Taoist canon, there is an anecdote recorded in a certain book. It is said that a man named Yang Yin lived in Jinnun County, Yangzhou. He liked the tranquility of Qiansan Mountain and often went there to play and live. One day, he was drinking with a Taoist priest from Jinnun Temple, and suddenly fell to the ground as if dead. He woke up after 7 days. The Taoist priest asked him, and he said that there was a fairy named Lining who invited him to visit the fairyland. The entrance to the fairyland is a cave without a name, so Yang Yin called it Qiansan Cave. After entering the cave, he saw magnificent buildings, phoenixes and cranes flying back and forth, clear sky and warm scenery, different from the human world, which is obviously a secret place. Fairy Lining asked him to eat King Yunzip, and then took him to meet the 3 masters of the secret realm, namely Xiaodui Tianwangjin, Huan Damaojin, and Yingxuantanzu Zormingjin. After the worship, the 3 immortals said, "You have immortal bones, but you have not yet cultivated to the realm of ascension. You should continue to cultivate in the human world." Then they asked Fairy Lining to send him away. After Yang Yin left Quakong Cave, he did not like grains, but drank 3 liters of water and ate 1 lily a day. It was obvious that he relied on the medicinal power of King Unzi to skip the 3 levels of fasting from immortal and entered the key refining stage. If the description in the book is true, there must be a secret realm built by immortals in Quakong Mountain. If the entrance can be found, Mishi can be tricked to come to explore later. It took half a day for Luoyang to arrive at Jinun Temple in the mountain. There were only a few Taoists in the temple, all of whom were white-haired. Luoyang used his spiritual consciousness to test and found that the 3 Taoists were all mortals and did not fast. He disguised himself as a tourist and asked about the past of Yang Yin. "This is just idle talk, why should you take it seriously?" A Taoist stroked his beard and smiled. "Many people have asked before, but they all returned empty-handed. If you're interested, you can go to Ruin Lang Pavilion in the mountain. That's where the ancestors drank with Yang Yin." Luoyang nodded in thanks. After about an hour, he found Ruin Lang Pavilion along the mountain road. The pavilion was built on a stone platform halfway up the mountain, next to a large cliff with countless seal characters engraved on it. According to the legends in the classics, Yang Yin got drunk here and entered the secret realm. Luoyang checked for a while and found no formations around. After sitting down in the pavilion, he took out a pot of wine from his bag. After thinking for a while, he put the wine pot back into the bag. Since the Taoist priest of Jinun Temple said that someone had visited before, he must have tried to learn to drink and get drunk like Yang Yin. However, in the end, they all returned without any results, which shows that drinking is useless. The mechanism of the entrance to the secret realm should not be so simple to explore, and it requires great wisdom, perseverance, and good fortune to explore it. Thinking of this, Luoyang said in a deep voice, "Jin, help me scan." Kunlun mirror. "What's wrong?" Luoyang asked again. "Wait a minute." Kunlun mirror was silent for a moment, and suddenly said, "There is a problem with the text on that wall." "Where?" Luoyang followed the prompts of Kunlun mirror and finally found a piece of text in a very low-lying valley. These words were blocked by bushes and were located very low. In addition to the Yamble problem, people had to lie on the ground beside the pavilion to see them. Luoyang also ignored his demeanor and lay down on the ground to look. He saw a line of 5-character poems written there. "Where is Runk? The entrance of the fairy cloud cave is horizontal. There is no place in the world, so I will go here today." Luoyang suddenly thought, if Yang Yin was really drunk, would he fall right where I was and see this little poem? Then, he felt dizzy and the scene in front of him suddenly changed. The large inscription on the cliff had long disappeared, replaced by a cave entrance. The cave entrance was very spacious and did not look like it was built by humans. There was moss growing in many places. Luoyang was not in a hurry to move forward, but just discussed with Kunlun mirror. "Can you analyze this entrance mechanism, mirror? It seems to be a visual mechanism." Kunlun mirror was silent for a few minutes and replied, "When you look at it, it will pull you into the secret realm." "What about going out?" Luoyang asked again to confirm. "Same." Kunlun mirror replied, "Look at the rock wall behind you, there are also words." Luoyang looked carefully and found a line of inscriptions on the rock wall behind the vines. The strokes were very fine and it was difficult to find without careful observation. 2 or 3 pieces of immortal bones. It is difficult to ascend to the 9th heaven. Let's go back to the human world and go to Mount Yu next year. Before he could savor it, he felt dizzy and found himself in Ruin Lang Pavilion. Luoyang returned to the secret realm again and confirmed the entry and exit mechanism several times. "Jin," he asked in a low voice, "is there any way to cover up the poem inside? Are you planning to make Mishi unable to leave after entering?" Kunlun Jin thought, "Okay, I can use illusion to cover it up. But she can't get out, so why can you go out to report to Master? This question may need to be solved." "No need to solve it." Luoyang replied, "It was only Mishi who entered the secret realm by mistake. I don't know why I stayed outside and couldn't find the entrance, so I had to ask Master for help. How about it?" "It's okay." Kunlun Jin sighed, feeling uneasy at the speed of Luoyang's lies, but in this way, Mishi will be trapped alone in the secret realm. Aren't you afraid that she will encounter any accidents? So we have to explore this secret realm first to ensure that no unnecessary risks are eliminated. Luoyang replied, "If this place is not suitable, we can look for other secret realms." He continued to walk forward, passed through the cave, and came to a valley. Although it was winter outside, the valley was warm as spring. The sky was clear, cloudless, the sun was warm, and the grass and trees were lush, as if it was early spring. Not far away were 3 small buildings, built in a clearing in the forest surrounded by streams. Luo Yan walked straight into the forest and saw plaques in front of the 3 small buildings, which read Xiao Tianwang Mansion, Huayan Damao Temple, and Yingshuan Tianzhu's warming residence respectively. It looks like a trial-type secret realm. Kunlun Mirror guessed, if it is really the old residence of an immortal, there is no need to specially open it up as a secret realm, and it is unlikely that the immortal's Taoist name is written on the outside. Whether it is true or not, you will know when you go in, Luo Yan said straightforwardly. He walked directly into the Xiao Tianwang mansion on the left. It was extremely spacious inside, and it was very similar to the Baiyuzheng secret realm. Another Taoist stood with his hands behind his back and said lightly, "Another distinguished guest has come here, and let's compete in Taoism." After speaking, he turned around, pinched the magic formula with his hands, and immediately a black wind suddenly rose from the ground and swept towards Luo Yan. Luo Yan frowned slightly. This black wind did not seem to be like the Taoism of the 3 pure ones of the Orthodox sect. It did not have the uprightness of the Chuan Men sect. But it did not have the evil and cruelty of the 6 parts of the demon sect. If I had to say, it was a bit like the first-class side door magic of the ancient Jiri Jiao. His mind moved slightly, and he had a vague guess about the background of the secret realm. He directly pulled out the acquired 5 elements of the Great Extinction Divine Light and pressed it towards the black wind on the opposite side. When the black wind touched the 5 elements of the Divine Light, it was immediately shattered on the spot. Acquired 5 elements Great Extinction Divine Light. The Taoist frowned slightly and asked, "Are you from your island in the East China Sea?" Luo Yan. Your island in the East China Sea seems to have been wiped out 7,000 years ago. It is rare that you can cultivate the 5 elements of the Divine Light to such a level without forming a pill. The Taoist nodded with satisfaction and continued, "But in my opinion, there are still many shortcomings in your Taoist method." They are, Chapter 270 Mishi is fooled. Next, the Taoist spent about 2/4 of an hour telling Luo Yan some knowledge about 5 elements transformation. Obviously, this Taoist was not a real person, but a kind of image with memory and intelligence left by the Lord of the Secret Realm, whose purpose was to guide the trial takers in their cultivation. If it were other cultivators, they would probably be even more depressed. It turns out that there are no treasures or adventures in your secret realm, and there is only a virtual elder who is responsible for imparting the experience of those who have been there. Luo Yan did not feel uncomfortable at all. After all, he was used to listening to lectures in Yuqing Temple, and he immediately discussed with the Taoist with great interest. After many doubts were answered, Luo Yan used the 5 elements Divine Light again, and found that many obscure points in the past suddenly became clear, and he could not help but become more and more happy. "Thank you, Senior," he said sincerely. "May I ask your name?" "You can call me Xiaoyutian Wang Jun." The Taoist nodded with satisfaction, and then said, "I left the image here to impart the knowledge of Taoism. Next door there are also precious memories left by Huang Damao Jun and Yingchuan Tianzhuo Jun. The former teaches swordsmanship and sword techniques, and the latter teaches people arithmetic. If you're interested, you can also go to their residence to learn." After saying that, Luo Yan felt a strong wind blowing, and his feet immediately lost strength and were pushed out of the door by the force. So he went to visit the other 2 small buildings, and it was indeed as Xiaoyutian Wang Jun said, one taught swordsmanship, and the other taught arithmetic. But no matter Taoism, swordsmanship or arithmetic, there is a feeling of being mixed and unrefined. It is best to use it to lay that foundation for novices, but for him, only the first time will benefit the most, and there will be nothing to learn if he continues to learn. Luo Yan reasonably guessed that these 3 people were probably Earth Immortals who were born as casual cultivators. Of course, in the ancient times when many stars gathered, it was not surprising that a casual cultivator could become an immortal by his own efforts. On the contrary, in this era, all the resources for cultivation are occupied by the Orthodox and the demonic sects. Among them, the 3 pure ones of the Orthodox sect are the children of the aristocratic families who divide up the resources, and the 6 parts of the demonic sect are all swelling internally. As for the casual cultivators, it is considered a great fortune to be able to cultivate to the nascent soul. In short, this secret realm is basically not dangerous. It is a trial secret realm that the 3 earthly immortals have nothing to do, just right to trap Mishi. Then you sit to lure out Elder Shiding and avoid the incident of 100,000 gods and demons attacking Penglai. Perfect. Luo Yan returned to the cave again, asked a Jin to cast an illusion on the world at the exit, and then left the illusion. Flying on the sword, crossing the ocean, he finally arrived at Yuqing Temple. He suddenly discovered that the aura of the surrounding protective formation seemed to have changed. In the terms of formation, the level of scanning and defense has increased. It seems that although Elder Shiding has great confidence in the Chidang Jiringang formation, he has also listened to my previous advice, so he raised the alert level. Luo Yan felt extremely relieved, and he sent down the sword light on the mountainside of Penglai, and then walked into the temple. As soon as he returned to Tiangong, he saw Miss Shiluli, who rushed out angrily. Luo Yan. Junior brother Luo, where have you been? Master has repeatedly ordered that you are not allowed to leave the temple without permission, and you dare to ignore it. Senior sister, I'm sorry. Luo Yan first gave in when they met, and when he saw Mishi's expression eased a little, he smiled and said, why do I remember that master said, senior sister, you are not allowed to leave the temple without permission. Okay. Shiluli's anger, which had originally subsided, suddenly rose again. You dare to talk back. She rolled up her sleeves on both sides, revealing her arms like white jade lotus roots, and came over with her hands on her hips, pretending to hit Luo Yan. Luo Yan immediately fled. It was impossible to fight back, and it was too embarrassing to have his ears twisted by the eldest lady for nothing, so he might as well run away. Mishi looked weak, but she was surprisingly strong. She chased Luo Yan all over the workshop, shouting, since my senior sister is under house arrest, you can go out and play everywhere, right? Are you the senior brother or am I the senior sister? No, this has nothing to do with seniority, right? Luo Yan shouted. I'm the senior sister, I'm under house arrest, you should stay in the temple to accompany me. Shiluli shouted angrily. Where does this rule come from? Luo Yan shouted in grievance, hoping that her master or senior brothers and sisters would come to help hold Mishi back. However, after hearing the noise, the senior brothers and sisters came out, but they just stood aside and watched, talking and laughing from time to time, as if the CP party was eating dog food. Luo Yan was chased and had no choice but to hide behind the senior brothers and sisters, which made Mishi scream in anger. Okay, junior sister. Senior brother Ling Yushu said, don't bully him anymore. Shiluli stopped and just glared at Luo Yan angrily. Go away. Ling Yushu waved his hand to let the junior brothers and sisters who were watching the fun leave, and then reminded Shiluli, it was master's intention to confine you. It's useless to vent your anger on junior brother. It's better to wait for master to come back, and I will go to him to plead for mercy, at least so that you can go to the market. Thank you, senior brother. Shiluli immediately turned from anger to joy, senior brother is the best. Luo Yan felt a little disappointed. I have served you for so long, and I have never heard you say junior brother is the best. Senior brother said a word for you, and you flatter him. Ling Yushu didn't take it seriously, knowing that the praise from this junior sister was almost like farting, and it came completely casually, so he waved his hand and left. He has been practicing in the subtle stage of the Golden Core Realm for a long time, and is only half a step away from forming an infant, and he has to prepare recently. After all the senior brothers and sisters left, Mishi put her hands on her hips again and glared. But Luo Yan was very familiar with her and knew that Mishi's anger had subsided. Now she was just forcing herself to maintain an angry expression in order to prevent Luo Yan from thinking that she was easy to fool. Senior sister, calm down. Luo Yan said flatteringly, I didn't go out to play this time, but to explore the secret realm. Oh, secret realm? Shiluli's eyes lit up immediately. She liked this kind of unknown secret realm that could be explored the most. Unfortunately, to find the secret realm, she could only rely on soaking in the Taoist pavilion with its voluminous volumes, and what she hated most was sitting and reading books, ahem. She reluctantly put away her anger and said seriously, tell me in detail, I will decide whether to forgive you or not based on the situation. It's like this, senior sister. Luo Yan told the legendary story of Yangan again, saying that he found Ruin Langtime along the route, but did not break the restriction of the entrance. In any case, there must be an entrance there. He vowed. Indeed. Shiluli said it was hard not to be suspicious. As for whether she really thought there was a secret place hidden there, or just wanted to find an excuse to go out and play, it was unknown. It's decided. She waved her fist and said, this young lady is going to find this secret place. Senior sister, you are still under house arrest. Luo Yan reminded her hypocritically, no matter what, you have to wait for master to lift your house arrest before you go to find that secret place, right? It will be only 20 to 30 years later. Kumlan Mira listened to him playing with language art numbly, and even didn't bother to report the reminder of the increase in synchronization value. Sure enough, when she heard still 20 to 30 years, Shirley almost jumped up. What house arrest? You remembered it wrong. Father just told me to go out as little as possible, but he didn't say I couldn't go out. She pretended to be stupid and walked out of the door. Luoyang hurriedly followed her. Then if Master asks about it later, just say you tried to stop it, but couldn't stop me. Chapter 271. A trip to Kuakong Mountain, Yangzhou, Kuansan Mountain. Shirley walked happily in the mountains, sometimes touching the surrounding bushes, and sometimes running to the edge of the cliff to look down. Perhaps because she was born on an island and rarely came to the mainland, she had a special liking for the scenery in the mountains. But this attitude of clearly coming for an outing made Luoyang couldn't help but complain. What about the promised exploration of the secret realm? Even if you want to come out to play, at least pretend. If so, he wouldn't worry. I'm just afraid that Miss Xu will play too much and miss the best time to be trapped, so that he won't have time to go back for help. He must strictly control the time without Shirley noticing. The Taoist temple is in front. Luoyang said. I want to live there. Shirley said immediately. Senior sister. Huh. Are we here to explore the secret realm or to travel? Luoyang asked weakly. Shirley thought for a moment and said, Junior brother. Did you find the secret realm when you came here before? That's not the case. Luoyang stretched out his voice. Have you ever lived in a Taoist temple? No. Then how do you know that staying in a Taoist temple for a few days will not help you find the entrance to the secret realm? Shirley narrowed his eyes and smiled. Luoyang. Slippery slope, right? Of course, he couldn't say at this time that the entrance mechanism had nothing to do with staying in the Taoist temple, otherwise he would be asked to produce evidence. Therefore, Luoyang could only pretend to be embarrassed, and finally gritted his teeth and said, It's okay, but senior sister, don't stay here for too long. Otherwise, it's hard to explain to Master. Okay. Shirley showed an expression of I really can't do anything with you, which made Luoyang extremely angry again. The two entered the Taoist temple and asked the 3 old Taoist priests to stay overnight. In this era, it is very normal to go to the mountains to play and then stay overnight in Buddhist temples and Taoist temples. After all, you can also contribute incense money. The 3 old Taoist priests readily agreed and even took out the tea collected in the temple to entertain the two. It was cold in winter, and it was fun to set up a stove in the yard to make tea and warm your hands at the same time. Luoyang was thinking about this when he saw Shirley holding a fire tong and enthusiastically stuffing firewood into the stove. Why don't you use the fire control magic weapon? Luoyang asked curiously. Don't you have the magic fire lamp? I didn't bring it. Shirley answered confidently. When the water in the pot was boiled, Miss Xu picked up the kettle and brewed a cup of tea for the two. Then she used a magic spell. She put her hands together and chanted the water essence of the morning star. The cave reflects the North Sea, and the cold starlight from her palms flowed out like a silk thread and fell into the tea, and the rising heat immediately dissipated. What is this? Luoyang asked again. The new method your senior sister is practicing is called Right 6 Yuan O Luo Chen Xing Jingfu. Shirley smiled with narrowed eyes. How is it? Isn't it amazing? Is it a derivative method of your key refining technique? Luoyang asked. Yes. The secret record of the 5 latitudes Jintian is the method that Miss Xu obtained from the last trip to the Li Palace. According to the identification of Elder Shidin, it should be a rare key refining technique that uses the power of the stars to assist breathing, so it is not surprising that there are derivative methods. Judging from the effect of this method, it seems to be a method with icy properties. However, it is used by Miss Xu to cool tea, which is very consistent with her personality. Luoyang picked up the somewhat cold teacup and sipped the tea, but found that the temperature was controlled just right and not too cold. He looked at Shirley sitting opposite him with a slightly lazy and lingering feeling, holding the cup and drinking tea comfortably. The throat moved slightly, showing a delicate and slender neck. Looking down again, it was a little regretful. However, considering her innocent and childlike personality, this figure is normal. Where are you looking at? Shirley suddenly noticed his regretful look, and immediately slapped the stone table with her palm, shaking the stove. A beautiful anger appeared on her pretty face. Senior sister's clothes are very beautiful today. Luoyang retracted his gaze without changing his expression and said calmly. Hey, is that so? Shirley immediately dispersed her anger, stared at her clothes for a long time, and showed a satisfied expression of you have good taste. Penglai, like Kunlun and Shushan, has its own standard Taoist robes, but most disciples don't like to wear them. Miss Xu is the most exaggerated. There are probably hundreds of dresses in Tiangong workshop. In theory, she can have different clothes for 365 days a year. But whether it is the master or the senior brothers and sisters, they are all very serious cultivators who don't pay attention to the beauty of food and clothing. At this time, she was praised by Luo Yan, and she immediately felt a sense of comfort and that young junior brother still understands me. So which one do you think looks better, this outfit today or yesterday? Mishi asked complacently. Luo Yan. This question stumped him. After all, yesterday was the day before yesterday for Mishi, and for Luo Yan, there were several months of Qiu Chang Tian, Ling Yunpo and Wei Donliu in between. Damn it. If I asked this question tomorrow, how could I not be able to answer it? Jin, help me. Seeing Shilili's face gradually becoming suspicious, Luo Yan quickly asked for help from the little sister who accompanied him. Kumlan Mirror was silent for a moment, sighed, and then projected the scene of Luo Yan's line the day before in front of him. Today's dress is still better. Luo Yan immediately pretended to think, and then replied, today's dress has a more ethereal temperament, and yesterday's dress was too heavy, and it seems to cover up the beauty of senior sister. Yes. Shilili smiled, the dress yesterday was chosen by my father, and I said he has no aesthetic ability at all. Master also chooses clothes for you? Luo Yan asked with a smack of his tongue. He always complains that the clothes I wear are not stable enough. Shilili snorted coldly, little junior brother, what do you think? No. Luo Yan stared at the snow-white skin under her neck and said hurriedly. There is no low cut or v-neck, so how can it be exposed? Master is really an antique. No, the Yuning Elder has a lifespan of 1,000 years, which is indeed an antique. In addition, it is still an old father to his daughter, which can be said to be doubly conservative. Thinking of this, Luo Yan felt a little uneasy again. I kidnapped Mishi like this, won't Master hate me? Alas, I'm also thinking about him. When he finds out and avoids the disaster, he will understand my painstaking efforts. After finishing their tea, the two went out for a walk. They walked leisurely to Ruin Land Pavilion. Shilili stared at the inscriptions on the cliff and asked, is this the place? Yes. According to records, Yan Ying got drunk here and entered the secret realm. Luo Yan replied. Yes. Mishi continued to look at the inscriptions and suddenly said, do you think the entrance to the secret realm is behind this cliff? Luo Yan was startled, and heard Shilili say again, why don't we try to bombard it with Taoist magic? Chapter 272 Sending Mishi into the secret realm. Almost 10 days had passed. As the entrance to the secret realm had not been found for a long time, Shilili also gradually became irritable, depressed, and even desperate from the initial novelty. I don't want to look for it anymore. In the guest room of Jinun Temple, Mishi rolled on the bed. Help me find it, help me find it, help me find it. Luo Yan immediately showed a sad face, but secretly thought in his heart, of course I can help you find it, but I have to wait for 2 more days. I've decided. She suddenly jumped out of bed. Father must be very worried after not seeing him for so many days. Alas, I'm really unfilial. Mishi was about to go out, and Luo Yan was frightened. He quickly stopped her and said, how about we look for it one last time? If there is still no clue, let's go back. Well, Shilili looked at Luo Yan, and somehow, she suddenly felt a little guilty. You know, the junior brother didn't plan to bring me here at first, but I heard the world's secret realm and had to follow him here. In the end, she couldn't find the secret realm, but she took her anger out on her junior brother, and yelled that she wanted to go back first. Thinking of this, she felt guilty. So she slowed down her tone, smiled gently, and said, well, that's good. Let's go and see it again. The two left the Taoist temple and walked towards Ruin Land Pavilion. The temperature in the mountains has been low recently, and the grass leaves on the roadside have also formed white frost. Luo Yan walked beside Shilili, looking at the young lady's gloomy appearance from the corner of his eyes, and felt a little helpless. It was obviously to save you, but you despised me, TSK. The two came to Ruin Land Pavilion again, and Shilili sat down in the pavilion, looking around boredly. In the past 10 days, she had searched the pavilion inside and out, and she was just short of prying up the entire pavilion and digging 3 feet into the ground. Therefore, Mishi now has no interest in continuing to search, because she has no idea where else to look. Luo Yan took out the stove and wine pot that he had prepared long ago from his bag, as if performing magic, and said with a smile, if you want to find the secret place of the past, I think you might as well start with the story of Yang An. Mishi was not too stupid after all. When she saw him take out the wine pot, she suddenly realized. You mean, learn to drink like Yangan until you are drunk, and then you may be led to the secret place by the fairy in age as the legend says. Luo Yan. No, if someone really shows up when you are drunk, it is basically certain that they have bad intentions. How dare you follow them? He didn't want to complain about Mishy's weird ideas, but continued. Try it first, maybe it'll work. Well, I've never drunk wine before. Mishy looked at Luo Yan warming up the wine, a little nervous. Big brother is so fond of wine, has he never tricked you into drinking once? Luo Yan asked in disbelief. He still remembers that once Ling Yushu invited him to drink Huguo wine, claiming that drinking it can increase the power of Qi training by half a century. After drinking it, he told him that it takes about 30 years to digest the medicinal effect. In fact, I drank it once. Shilui said with his chin in his hand, when I was young, well, my height was only about the waist now, and the eldest brother tricked me into drinking some osmanthus wine and told me it was sweet. Then what happened? Luo Yan thought to himself, Ling Yushu, you can even lay your hands on a little girl. Then my father saw us. Shilui said with a smile, the eldest brother was beaten. Luo Yan was speechless, thinking that if he was caught by the daughter-controlled elder Shi Din, Ling Yushu would not dare to trick Mishy into drinking for the rest of his life. Soon the wine was warmed up. Luo Yan first poured a glass for Mishy, and then filled it for himself. If I drink this wine, can't I use my true essence to digest the alcohol? Shilui picked up the glass and asked hesitantly. Of course. Luo Yan said, Yangan was drunk as hell. How could he activate the secret realm when he sobered up? Are you so sure, junior brother? Shilui snorted, if I'm drunk and the secret realm hasn't appeared, you're done, I tell you. Senior sister, you'll be drunk by then, what else can you do? Luo Yan said with a smile at first, then suddenly realized that something was wrong and quickly shut up. Why do you say it as if I'm going to do something to her while she's drunk? Okay, I do want to do something to her, but it's all for her good. Shilui didn't doubt it at all, she just lifted the cup to her lips and took a sip. It's so bitter. And a little spicy, it doesn't taste good. She stuck out her tongue and frowned cutely and playfully. Hold on, senior sister. Luo Yan said with a gleaming look, finish this cup. Why don't you drink? Shilui said angrily, you want to get me drunk, burp, right? That's not true. Luo Yan immediately acted aggrieved, if you really need to be drunk to enter the secret realm, how can you not get drunk, senior sister? Really? Shilui's suspicious eyes wandered around him, but in the end she still believed in this good junior brother who she had been with day and night, and raised the cup to drink it in one gulp. Senior sister is so straightforward. More. Luo Yan hurriedly and attentively poured her wine. Senior sister, you have a really good alcohol tolerance. Can you drink more? Senior sister, I have a new respect for you. I will fill your glass. After 3 rounds of drinking, Shilui was already a little drunk. She suddenly slammed the table and shouted, you, junior brother, why don't you drink? You want to get me drunk, and then, do something bad to me, right? Senior sister, you can drink as much as you want, but you can't say anything. Luo Yan immediately defended, senior brother just tricked you into drinking, and he was almost beaten to death by master. If I dared to do something bad to you, master would have taken my soul away. That's true. Shilui muttered. After all, the work father has always given her a great sense of security. So she glanced at Luo Yan again and said proudly, I don't think you dare. This look was so charming that Luo Yan felt a little dry in the mouth. Miss Xu was originally a delicate and beautiful type, and could be called the top of the little girl route, but she usually spoke too childishly, so people really couldn't think of her. Now that she was slightly drunk, she became even more innocent and almost impossible to control herself. Of course, Luo Yan couldn't help himself. After all, he had received professional training, so he just smiled and poured himself a glass of wine. Under the gaze of his senior sister, he drank it all, and then quietly circulated his true essence to refine it. Seeing that he had also toasted, Shilui immediately put down her last vigilance and began to drink in a daze. Senior sister. Luo Yan saw that she had almost finished drinking, so he asked tentatively, senior sister. Shilui staggered, as if she wanted to lie on the table, but she was still holding on. A jing. Luo Yan called out hurriedly. Here I come. Kumlan Mirror immediately launched the Mirror Flower Water Moon illusion on Shilui. This illusion contains very secret psychological hints, which can make people mistake Chen Gyonzu with Akio Chen Tian, Ling Yunpo, Luo Yan and other characters, and naturally it can also be used for other purposes. Now Miss She has long been unconscious. How can she resist a Jing's illusion? She just thought that she was in the bedroom now, so she slowly lay on the ground and planned to sleep. Suddenly, she saw words engraved on the wall of the bedroom. She tried to open her eyes wide and looked at it. Her eyes fell on the low-lying part of the cliff. Just when she read half of the poem there, the whole person disappeared. She was teleported to the secret realm. Very good. Luo Yan was in high spirits and immediately lay on the ground and entered the secret realm. In the secret realm, at the end of the cave, Shi could no longer bear the drunkenness and fell asleep on the spot. Luo Yan carefully carried him up and walked towards the valley ahead. Pushing open the door of Xiao Tianwang mansion, Luo Yan put Shi on the ground, bowed to the Taoist phantom inside, and said, "Junior pays homage to Lord Xiao Tianwang. I have an unreasonable request, and I hope you will consider it." "What request?" The Taoist phantom turned around and said lightly, "I would like to ask for your help to protect my senior sister. Don't say that I brought her here." Luo Yan said sincerely, "I will send someone to pick her up in a few days." "It's okay." The Taoist shadow nodded and said, "This secret realm was built to help the younger generation. There is no reason to exclude people. When she wakes up, I will treat her as a trial taker and let her accept the trial. I won't say anything more." "Thank you, senior." This answer was also within Luo Yan's expectations. He had already had a good impression of this person, and he also knew most of his temperament. So he bowed again, then stretched out his hand and tapped several major acupoints on Shilili's body, injecting his true energy to quickly dissolve the alcohol in his body. About 5 breaths later, Shilili woke up slowly. When he looked at Luo Yan again, he had already run away. Chapter 273. The Immortal touched my head and gave me something good. Where am I? Shilili sat up shakily and was stunned for a while. She looked around, but she didn't see Luo Yan's shadow, only a Taoist shadow, sitting cross-legged on a cushion with his eyes closed. She suddenly realized that she seemed to have entered a secret realm. "But where is my junior brother?" "Senior?" Shilili asked hesitantly, "Have you seen my junior brother? He is a male cultivator who always squints his eyes and smiles very silly. This is Xiao Tianwang Mansion." The Taoist said lightly, "It is for trialists who enter the secret realm to learn Taoism. Although it is a Taoist shadow, it has inherited the memory and personality of the original owner." He promised Luo Yan not to talk much, so he will never say a word. He slowly opened his eyes, stared at Shilili, who was confused, and said, "Do you want to practice Taoism?" Luo Yan slowly flew back to Penglai Fairy Island, but he was not in a hurry to land near Yu King Temple. Instead, he rubbed his face and made a panicked and frightened expression. Then he rushed all the way to Tiangong Workshop. Not good. Not good. He went directly to the residence of Elder Shiding and shouted, "Master, my sister was captured by the secret realm." Elder Shiding. After Luo Yan finished telling the whole story breathlessly, Elder Shiding sighed helplessly and looked at Luo Yan with a complicated look. "If you climb the mountain many times, you will eventually encounter a tiger. It is only a matter of time for your own daughter to fall into trouble when she goes out to wander around all day." Fortunately, according to Luo Yan's description, she was not captured by the demon cult, but was captured by the secret realm by accident. What does it mean to be captured by the secret realm? Take me there first. Elder Shiding stood up and said, his expression was calmer than Luo Yan had expected. "Master, should we bring our brothers and sisters with us?" Luo Yan suggested again, "The mechanism of the entrance to the secret realm is unknown. Maybe we will bump into someone's professional field." "No need." Elder Shiding waved his hand, "All their skills were taught by me. Is there anything they can do that I can't?" Luo Yan. He originally wanted to save more people, but now that he couldn't convince his master and couldn't risk exposing himself by revealing more information, he could only ask his brothers and sisters to take care of themselves. The two left the Taoist temple. Luo Yan was about to fly up on his sword, but Elder Shiding took out a magic weapon from his sleeve and threw it into the air, and it turned into a big ship. "Get on board." Elder Shiding ordered on the deck. Luo Yan hurriedly flew onto the ship, and saw the deck under his feet vibrate slightly, and then he turned into a stream of light and quickly swept towards the southwest. Too fast. Too fast. "Master, although you were eager to save your daughter, if you run at full speed like this, maybe you can catch up with the 100,000 gods and demons attacking Penglai after saving Miss Shi." Luo Yan's face was slightly gloomy, and he was nervous and thinking hard. Seeing his worried expression, Elder Shiding thought that the child was an honest man, so he comforted him. "It's okay. Although Lily is a little spoiled, she is smart and blessed after all. If the secret realm has a protection mechanism like the Lee Palace, there is no need to worry. I admit that she is lucky, but I don't agree with her smart, Luo Yang complained in his heart and asked again. Jin, do you think the entrance restriction of the secret realm will be cracked by Master? I don't know. Kumlin Jing replied. How can I not know? Luo Yan immediately flew into a rage. How can I know what level your master is? Kumlin Jing also got angry. Don't you have that, scanner? Luo Yan tried to make a specious argument. Scanning can only scan matter, not thoughts. Kumlin Mirror said loudly, otherwise I would have scanned your brain thoroughly to see what kind of mess is inside. You are so angry with me for such a thing. Luo Yan. He was speechless because of the broken mirror, and his expression became more and more ugly. On the other side, in the secret realm of Quansun Mountain, Shili left the small building in a dusty mood. What kind of broken secret realm is this? There are no treasures, no adventures, only 3 old Taoist priests. When they meet, they train in various Taoist methods, swordsmanship, and arithmetic. After the training, they teach theory and point out our shortcomings. If Elder Shiding was here, he would immediately recognize that this is the so-called inherited secret realm, built by those immortals, mostly from casual cultivation, who hope to pass on their own Taoist traditions. It is the most harmless of all secret realms. However, for Mishi, the various inheritances in Yu King Temple alone are enough for her to learn for a lifetime, so why should she learn from 3 Taoist phantoms here? If it weren't for the inability to leave here, Shili gritted her teeth, somewhat unwillingly, and began to search the valley again. The valley was not big, and she searched every inch of it, even the original cave. But under the cover of the Kumlin Mirror's illusion, she didn't notice the inscriptions behind the vines at all. Considering that she came in drunk, did she have to be drunk to get out? No, according to the story shared by the junior brother, Yang left after visiting 3 Taoists. In other words, the authority to leave the secret realm is in the hands of those 3 Taoists. Shili had no choice but to step into the Wangdamal temple again. There was a thin old man inside, dressed as a Taoist, standing with his hands behind his back. Seeing her coming again, the old man smiled and said, "Swordsmanship training must be continued every day, very good. Stop talking nonsense." Shili pulled out the fairy sword and said, "If I defeat you, you have to let me out of the secret realm." "What's the harm?" The old man smiled. "You were a girl with enough comprehension, but you were too lazy. After practicing swordsmanship for several times, your progress is very obvious, don't judge me." Shili raised her sword and stabbed directly at the old man. I discussed it with the other 2. The old man manipulated the flying sword casually and blocked Shili's slash. If you can meet the assessment standards of the 3 of us, it is not impossible to hand over the secret treasure we hide here to you to inherit. What mantle? Shili suddenly stopped. Your foundation of Taoism is the 5-layer Jintine secret record, right? The old man said slowly. Banjun has a magic weapon called Tuigu Chenya Pokusingzar, is it powerful? Shili's eyes lit up. With your 5-dimensional star essence, it can be turned into a sky full of stars and silver light. The enemy will fall into the Milky Way and be smashed into pieces in an instant. Do you think it is powerful? The old man stroked his beard and smiled. If you put it that way, it must be powerful. Mishi also smiled. I have a fairy sword here, called Zijihan Yuan. The old man continued, although it is not as good as Wanjin's Tuik Singzar, it is better than that sword you are using now. My sword is of the 10th level. Shili didn't believe it at first, but then he realized it and was overjoyed. Could it be that the Zijihan Yuan sword is an 11th level fairy sword? In addition, your fate is a bit strange. The old man finally said slowly. Yingquantan Zulmingjan said that if you are willing to take over his magic calculation, he can teach you a secret method. Practice diligently to avoid confusion between good and bad, and a balance between good and bad. Shili was originally overjoyed, but he became bitter when he heard it. She doesn't want to learn any secret techniques. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 274. Master is also helpless. If Shili is given another chance, she will definitely take all the magic weapons she can take with her before going out. The Jade Empire bell covered her body, and the divine whip was thrown forward. No matter what swordsmanship or Taoism, it was all smashed to pieces in one go. This won't work. Xiao Yuti and Wang Jun leisurely manipulated the Taoism to force the embarrassed Shilili back again, saying, "There is an old saying in our time, called ki refining is the foundation, magic is the means, and magic weapons are external objects. What you get through your own breathing practice is what you can master. As for magic weapons, although they are convenient to use, they are of no help to your growth." "I know," Shilili said impatiently. "This is just a rehash of the old tune, because Elder Shiding has told her more than 100 times. It's useless. Miss Shi is so lazy that she has given up everything that requires her to practice for more than a month in her mind. As for this time, it was because she was trapped in the secret realm and could not escape, so she had to practice Taoism, swordsmanship and magic to try her best to reach the standard required by the 3 Taoist shadows here." She put her hands together again and shouted, "The water essence of the morning star, the cave reflects the North Sea." The true energy of her whole body was agitated along a specific route, and a large amount of starlight poured out from the place where her palms were closed, as cold as cold smoke and as bright as stars, rushing towards the old Taoist priest opposite. The old Taoist priest laughed and pointed his hand, and a black wind swirled over and began to wrestle with the bright starlight. For most Taoist methods, unless they encounter a situation of mutual generation and mutual restraint, for example, the 5 elements of divine light restrain everything that does not come out of the 5 elements, it is basically a competition of strength. Whoever has a more powerful true energy and a more condensed Taoist method can crush the Taoist method of the opposite side in advance. Of course, the control skills of the true energy are also very important. Excellent control ability can increase the power by up to 50% on the basis of the same true energy. This is actually a considerable proportion. It takes a lot of patience to exercise control ability, and Shilili lacks patience the most, so her original control of Xin Yuan was extremely rough, and she had almost no skills to speak of. It was just that in this secret realm, she had to be patient and practice under helplessness. Not bad, not bad. Seeing that her right 6 Yuan Oluo Chen Xing Jingfu was more and more skillful, and the starlight control was also very stable, the old Taoist finally nodded and withdrew the Taoist magic in his hand. "It's not easy to practice to this level. I consider you to have passed this level." "Really?" Shilili breathed a sigh of relief, and then said in surprise, "Then can you give me that very powerful, something star-sent magical treasure?" "Not yet." The old Taoist smiled and saw through her little trick at a glance. "You'll be given all the rewards only after you pass the test of the 3 of us." "Shilili, it's really boring," she said depressedly and helplessly, and turned to leave. After leaving Xiao Tianwang Mansion, Shilili stood in front of the other 2 small buildings and hesitated again. Should I try swordplay first or numerology first? If you ask Miss Shi, she doesn't want to try either. Swordplay is Shilili's absolute weakness. Probably because swordplay tests eyesight and reaction speed, and Shilili has basically no practical experience since she was a child. Although her eyesight is okay, her reaction speed is simply too weak. Many times, the flying sword was on her neck, and she screamed in fear. As for numerology, it is not as difficult as swordplay, but the degree of trouble is almost several times that of swordplay. This thing is a bit like mathematics. First, it requires a lot of memory. Secondly, it requires a lot of calculations, and finally, it requires a lot of deductions. The 3 a lot shows how troublesome it is, and Miss Shi is the person who hates trouble the most, so you can imagine how much she rejects learning numerology. After thinking about it, she can't beat swordplay after all, so she can only choose numerology. Outside the secret realm, Luo Yan has brought Elder Shiding and landed in Quhansun Mountain, outside Ruin Land Time. "It's here." Luo Yan pointed to the pavilion and said, "We imitated Yan Nanjiao and drank here." After getting drunk, the senior sister suddenly disappeared. "Well, let me give it a try." Elder Shiding nodded. He took out a large number of formation flags from his bag, waved his hand, and the nearly 100 formation flags flew out and disappeared. Then, Elder Shiding took out a compass magic weapon, held it in his palm, and silently recited the arithmetic. "Chiying Ding Xing plate." King Ping Sword suddenly said. "What is that?" Luo Yan asked nervously. "The top-level wonder for measuring Feng Shui." King Ping Sword replied, "I estimate that the entrance to the secret realm will not be hidden for long, and will soon be discovered by a master." "A mirror," Luo Yan said hurriedly, "help me quickly. There is at least a day and a half before 100,000 gods and demons attack Penglai. How can the master find the senior sister so quickly?" Kunlun mirror side and secretly activated the power of time and space. Elder Shiding had just chanted a few Dio formulas when he suddenly saw the needle on the Chiyo star plate spinning wildly like a headless fly. The power of time and space. Elder Shiding exclaimed in surprise, this restriction actually has the power of time and space. Master, is this power of time and space very powerful? Luoyan pretended not to understand. Time and space are the most obscure avenues. Elder Shiding said solemnly, for example, only the top shuttle magic weapons involve the power of space. As for the power of time, it is even rarer. Well, the complexity of the restrictions here is extraordinary. The teacher currently does not have enough equipment and cannot solve it. He threw the compass in his hand to Luoyan and said, take this magic weapon and go back to Yuking Temple to find the head of Kshandu to exchange the Liangya's Hautian dividing water plate in his hand. Okay, master. Luoyan took the compass magic weapon, thought for a while and said, there is a Taoist temple down the mountain. Before the disciple returns, master can go to the temple to rest. Well. Elder Shiding nodded. So Luoyan took off again with his sword, and only after flying out of the range of Quansan Mountain did he show a faint joy on his face. When I came here, I rode the mastership magic weapon, and when I left, I changed to flying the sword. I, Luoyan, am not good at sword flying, so it is normal to be a little slow, right? When he returned to the East China Sea, he found that 100,000 gods and demons were attacking Penglai. He was so panicked that he could not enter Yuking Temple. He had to turn around and come back to find the master again. It was also very reasonable, right? The sect's resident was besieged by a large number of demon cult masters and elders. The people inside could not escape at all. It was natural for the master to quickly go to Kunlun for help, right? In this way, he perfectly avoided the muddy water of Yuking Temple. Chapter 275. Insider investigates insider. Luoyan dawdled until he slowly arrived at Penglai Island. According to the captured Aizinzi, the expedition team arrived here in the morning. However, the surroundings were calm and there was no sign of any demon monks. He immediately had some doubts. Did Aizinzi lie? After almost an hour on the sea, the demon monks still did not appear. So Luoyan sighed and urged the sword light to land on Penglai Island. If he delayed any longer, the master would probably get suspicious. Back at Yuking Temple, Luoyan planned to go directly to Kshandu sect master. As soon as he stepped into the temple, he saw more than a dozen monks from the discipline hall rushing out from both sides, all in white clothes and robes, with solemn faces. The leader was Elder, the master of the discipline hall. He pointed at Luoyan and sealed his whole body power. Luoyan. He immediately thought that his identity as a spy had been exposed, and was about to call Arjun to take him away, but he saw Elder Jiling stretched out his fingers again and tapped several acupoints on his body. As the spiritual power flowed, his consciousness carefully scanned. There is no trace of the 10 phases of the law. Elder Jiling waved his hand, and the monks around him all breathed a sigh of relief, and the restraints on Luoyan were instantly released. After regaining his freedom, Luoyan pretended to be puzzled and asked, Senior, is there a cultivator from the Heavenly Demon Do who sneaked into the temple? It's not a cultivator from the Heavenly Demon Do. Elder Jiling said concisely, it's a cultivator from the Heldo. Luoyan was shocked when he heard this, and his heart was in turmoil. What? Wait only you couldn't find him over there, but he turned out to be here with Luoyan. Master Shi Wen, the 4th disciple of your Tiangong Fang, is dead. Judging from the scene, it was done by the monks of hell. Elder Jiling continued, the murderer must be hiding in the temple, and all disciples must cooperate with the investigation. Luoyan, you must return to Tiangong Fang immediately and must not go out. By the way, where is your master? Master went out for something. Luoyan's eyes were dull, and he was shouting in his heart that it was not good. I actually encountered such a thing. How can I run away? You know, even if 100,000 gods and demons attacked Penglai, Luoyan was not afraid at all. As long as he found a place and let Jin teleport himself away, the so-called demon sect encirclement would be a joke. But if Yuking Temple restricted his travel, then unless he was prepared to betray the religion, he really couldn't run away. Once he left here, he would be directly treated as a suspected traitor there. How could he survive in Penglai in the future? Forget it, I can only go back to Tiangong Fang first, and check who the traitor is. Luoyan walked silently towards the direction of Tiangong Fang, and suddenly realized, what does established history cannot be changed mean? I remember Aizinzi said that the God Strike Whip was obtained from a young master of formations. That is to say, when the protected formation of the sect is breached, I will definitely be besieged by some demon sect masters and elders, and I will have to control the God Strike Whip to protect myself, so as to complete the closed loop in the sense of time. So this time when I came back, I encountered such a bad thing. TSK, when I observe the future results, the future cannot be avoided, right? Returning to Tiangongfang, Luo Yan saw the third sister Liang Druo, who was just coming out of the inner room after being examined. Junior brother. She nodded to Luo Yan, her eyes were still a little red and swollen. You go in, don't worry, they can't embarrass you. Luo Yan was silent for a moment and nodded. The inner room was originally the storage room at Tiangongfang, but now it has been temporarily requisitioned by the discipline hall. When Luo Yan walked into the inner room, he saw a male monk from the discipline hall standing by, adjusting a mirror magic weapon, probably some kind of lie detector. Another female monk sat behind that table and motioned Luo Yan to sit down opposite. Where were you at 3:45 this morning? The other party asked directly. With Master, on the way to Yangzhou. Luo Yan answered honestly. The two monks looked at each other for a moment. Being with Elder Shi Din, that was the perfect alibi, and the murderer's suspicion could be basically ruled out. Your senior sister Shilili has not appeared in the temple for more than 10 days. The female monk continued to ask, do you know where she is? Yes. Luo Yan continued to nod and said, she was trapped in a secret place in Qiakong Mountain. Master and I went there this time to save her. Then why did you come back again? The male monk asked. Master asked me to come back to borrow a magic weapon from the temple master. Luo Yan replied. The two monks of the discipline hall were silent for a moment, and the female monk said, okay. Don't leave Tiangongfang during this period. We will notify you separately after the investigation is completed. Excuse me, how did my fourth senior brother die? Luo Yan asked tentatively. Outside your master's study. The female monk hesitated for a moment and replied, he died because his soul was taken away by the evil magic of the hell. We suspect that the murderer sneaked into your master's study and was looking for something when your fourth senior brother happened to pass by and saw him. The two sides had a brief fight. When we were alerted and rushed over, we found that your fourth senior brother had been killed, and the murderer had disappeared. Luo Yan pondered after hearing this. Obviously, what the inner ghost was trying to find is likely to have a direct causal relationship with the final cracking of the Penglai Island protection formation. Since the cracking of the formation is an established fact that is about to happen, I think there is no need to stop it. The key is to find the inner ghost who killed the fourth senior brother to avoid being stabbed in the back when I run away. This inner ghost is most likely in Tiangong workshop. Among my senior brothers and sisters. Okay. He sighed and stood up. After leaving the inner room, Luo Yan did not go to his bedroom, but went straight to Mishi's room and pushed the door in. From the storage back in the corner of the drawer, he took out the God Strike Whip and the Jade Empire Bell. This Mishi, she just put the 10th level magic weapon here casually, and didn't even know to set up a magic circle to protect it. She is really careless. After putting away the two magic weapons, Luo Yan hurriedly left and came to the door of his senior brother Ling Dushu. He knocked on the door, but found that the senior brother was not inside. So he went to the residence of the second senior sister. The door was open and there was no one inside. Don't look for it. The third senior sister Liang Guo opened the door, stuck her head out and said, your senior brother is being investigated. Where is the second senior sister? She just came back from the investigation and went to the violin workshop. Third senior sister. Luo Yan said solemnly, do you think the murderer is from our Tiangong workshop? Liang Guo's face changed slightly, and after a moment, her eyes became cold. Are you suspecting the senior brother? The second senior sister? Or me? If I suspected my senior sister, I wouldn't ask directly. Luo Yan answered calmly. Your second senior sister is a dull person, and she has always had a good relationship with your fourth senior brother. Why do you want to kill him? Liang Guo said coldly, as for your eldest senior brother, he used to take such good care of you and bully, you should not doubt him. I see. Luo Yan smiled casually, it's my fault for rashly suspecting my senior brothers and sisters. Then let's just assume that the fourth senior brother committed suicide, and I won't look for any murderer. You, come back. Seeing Luo Yan turned around and left, Liang Guo hurriedly called him back. What's wrong, senior sister? Luo Yan turned around and asked. Come in first. Liang Guohua took a half step back and said worriedly, I have something to tell you. Okay. Luo Yan turned back and came back, his expression calm and composed. With his hands folded in his sleeves, he had already pinched the magic formula of the 5 elements divine light. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.